council chambers. We're going to roll right downhill. The proposed regular agenda scheduled for the 20th, we have oath of office. Oath of office for top non-incumbent as a city council member for 4-year term, expiring not until January 1st, 2022.
Man, sounds like a long time.
That's a long time. And then we have some mayor's awards and a MacGyver award as well. Number 4, we have a public hearing for consideration of an ordinance vacating and selling a portion of College Street right-of-way located between Valley Street and Market Street, Burlington, Iowa. It's going to be the first reading on that one. Mr. Tisland.
As part of the sale of the Apollo building, it stated that the city would work with the purchaser on vacating College Street, which is the north-south drive between the school building and the parking lot, not really used as a street, but remained a public right-of-way. So this is the process of going forward with vacating College Street as a right-of-way and selling that to the current owner of the Apollo school site. This did go through review. There's no utilities or any issues with it. The Planning Commission did have a meeting on October 24th and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of vacating of the right-of-way based on the ownership on both sides by the applicant, lack of utilities, and lack of use by the city as a through street. So this will connect up and be all one parcel when it would be completed.
Anything else on that?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
What's the progress over there?
He's purchased, or my understanding, he's purchased some windows and gotten stuff lined up for the roof, but haven't seen any construction progress to date.
Did we have a timeline that he's supposed to be working on?
I think he has to give some updates. It was later when we actually got the deed to him, so it was closer, I think in October was when we were supposed to get some update, and at that point, he just stated he had just ordered some roofing material and windows, so I'll try and get another update from him.
Okay, thank you.
I drive by there occasionally looking to it. Nothing's happening.
Yeah, well, we want to keep them encouraged. Anything else?
I don't have anything.
Okay, moving right along. Number 5. Next is consideration of West Avenue, Mason Road, urban renewal area and plan.
Mr. Cahill's to speak on this as well. I'm just going to go over a few things. That's what this covers, a map as well. So the plan is in the packet as well, but some of the parts of that, Iowa Code Chapter 403 authorizes cities and counties to establish areas where within their boundaries known as urban renewal areas to exercise special powers within these areas. They can set up economic development. Urban renewal area, that may be any area of a city or county which has been designated by the city council or board as an area that is appropriate for commercial, industrial, and/or residential housing enterprises, and in which the city or county seeks to encourage further development. Iowa Code also declares that economic development is a public purpose and authorizes local governments to make grants, loans, guarantees, tax incentives, other financial assistance to private enterprise. The scope of the urban renewal statute provides that incremental property tax revenues may be used to finance construction of public infrastructure to serve all levels of housing as long as a percentage of those revenues is set aside to help meet the housing needs of low and moderate income families. So this document is an urban renewal plan that's included in your packet within the meaning of Chapter 403 of the Code of Iowa, and it sets out the proposed project to be undertaken. So you see in the description of the urban renewal area, there's a through E, or is it A through F? So on the map here, that shows the corresponding legal description to the areas. So the urban renewal area within this plan is a larger area. It includes properties between West Avenue, with Dan Cahill's property on the north, down to Mason Road, with the intention that there is going to be, with future development, some street connections in this area, and going through this process, setting all these properties up. If street connections or development occurs, that they could have the opportunity to request a similar type assistance if desired by council. But this is all based on Mason Road sub-area plan that was adopted by the council in 1999 that laid out a street network in the area We have a lot of dead-end streets, Dill Street, Jim Kelly Drive, Gilbert, being east-west streets. Cambridge Drive is being constructed to the north property line on Sunrise West property at this time, Sequoia. So there's a lot of streets that need connected to better enable traffic flow and services throughout this area. So that's why the urban renewal area describes all these properties, even though we're talking about Mr. Cahill's project at this time. So as primary objectives for the development within the urban renewal area, similar to previous ones, contribute to a well-diversified, well-balanced local economy by creating new residential development, job opportunities, and strengthening the property tax base. Allow for planning and future connection of new public streets within the urban renewal area to existing public streets adjacent to the urban renewal area. To meet the housing needs as stated in Des Moines County Housing Needs Assessment by constructing new single-family duplex residential housing, meeting the identified moderate income housing price point, create a mechanism for financing for the construction of infrastructure and generate funds that can be used to improve housing for low to moderate income families. So as Mr. Cahill will go through his development, previously went through the Planning Commission, City Council as far as the preliminary plat. This was a 16-lot preliminary plat with a north-south street connecting to the southern edge of his property that would allow future street connection further to the south. Currently, Mike Moorfield owns the property to the south of that. Looking at constructing, again, single-family and possible duplexes on the west side of the development. Lots ranging between 10,000 and 27,000 square feet in size. Homes approximately 180 to 275,000. The developer of the project will install all required public infrastructure and utilities to and through the site, including approximately 870 lineal feet of new roadway, associated sewer, water, and other utilities. So this economic development agreement would be a second phase of this process. This is the first phase, as we went through before, of, I think, 3 different phases. The payments requested would not exceed $350,000. That's the estimated total cost for the developer. And then with the LMI set aside, the total payments would not exceed $484,400. So $134,400 in LMI set aside. That goes to low to moderate income families in the community. And that would be as specified by the council, how those are used. Again, the plat was approved by council on October 2nd, 2017. And then the future establishment of a TIF tax increment district and a development agreement would be needed, as you see on your council agenda, set date for December 2nd, I believe it is consideration of a development agreement with Park West LLC for the West Avenue Mason Road urban renewal area. That would specify more of the terms of the agreement.
Good.
If I understand this, then, Eric, am I correct, if we do the TIF, then that means there's no tax abatements for
Correct.
any
Yep.
potential houses that are in there?
Yeah, our tax abatement policy that was adopted states if TIF is directly used, then tax abatement would not be allowed for any homes in that area. Now, we've discussed before, the current tax abatement, we have a 10-year, which equates out to about 440% of taxes over a 10-year period. 3 years, 300% over those 3 years. I think for TIF, it was around 500 or 600. Is it roughly 5.5 or 6 years?
It's a little over 5 years, so yeah.
Yep. So it is the 3 years, around 3 years, the 10 years, essentially around 4.5 years of tax abatement, and the TIF would be around a little over 5.5 years of tax abatement, so.
No, that's,
Or-
saying that's the portion that goes to the developer.
Yeah, yep,
You also have collected the portion that comes into the LMI set-aside account.
we did meet with the school district, sent out a notice for the plan as well as required, and again, the planning commission did meet and did vote 5-1 to approve the urban renewal area as well.
Okay. Mr. Cahill?
Handouts.
Thank you, sir.
More handouts. All good teachers get handouts.
Well, I'm Dan Cahill, 1414 Hillary Avenue, Burlington. I'm not here to ask the city for any money. I should be happy to hear that. Tax increment financing, it really takes a lot of knocks in the newspaper and out in the public for some reason. I don't understand why. I'm a big fan of tax increment financing. There are two types of tax increment financing. Most people don't really realize that, and they've heard rumors about the developers are getting rich and all this. Well, the first type of tax increment financing is where a city goes out and takes out a loan, a bond, for the improvements. And then the improvements are taxed over the years, 10-year period, or whatever the city adopts, and pays off that bond. So the city really didn't have any money in there in that type of tax increment, except perhaps their full faith and credit to guarantee that bond. I think Jim told me one day that the city actually contributes because you use their full faith and credit. Anyway, that's the old type of tax increment financing. The Iowa legislature has changed the law now to provide that you can have developers pay for all of the costs of the infrastructure, streets, sewer, water, underground electric, engineering, reforestation, whatever it takes, but the developer has to pay that 100%. And Park West that I propose there it's about a $500,000 project, and I think it's going to be a great benefit to the city of Burlington, Iowa. I really do feel that. Obviously, we can't TIF the cost of the ground, but I paid about $150,000 for that, and $350,000 is the estimated cost of the improvements. A substantial amount of money. I'm willing to do that. Actually, I wanted to run a street in there and put a cul-de-sac there, and I was advised by the city planning department that they would rather have a through street there. Well, I went along with that too. It cost me another $30,000 or whatever to do that, but I still think their plan was the best plan. I really do, because Burlington really needs a through street in that part of town. It's a really fast developing area, our fastest developing area, I think, and this land has been off the market since the 1940s. And I tried to buy it 40 years ago, as a matter of fact, and was unsuccessful. So when I saw it was coming up for auction, I went over, and I don't know whether I was successful or not, but at least I bought the front 7.94 acres. And I don't understand the negativity surrounding tax increment financing. And I've talked to people about it all the time. And I've talked to the council about it here before. In Burlington, you always heard that, well, the council shouldn't be picking winners and losers. I heard that so many times from especially a former council member. And then I heard, well, we can't do a TIF because we don't have a policy on TIFs in Burlington. Well, I really think we do have a policy on TIFs in Burlington. The policy should be whatever is best for the city of Burlington. If it's good for Burlington, let's do it. Other cities have had the same problem. And I'll give you some more information a little later. I don't want to take up all afternoon, but even mighty Des Moines now is entering the TIF financing arena more than they did years ago, because the western suburbs were eating their lunch as far as development. And I've got a referral to a really great Des Moines Register article in there. But just a little bit about history of TIFs in Burlington. Burlington was really one of the first cities in the state to adopt a residential TIF. Believe it or not, I think we were number 2 when the state legislature provided that. And so on your outline that I gave you, I wanted to give you a little history of Burlington's experience with TIF, tax increment financing. Burlington's experience has been phenomenal. It has just been phenomenal. In 1993, myself and Mitch Taylor came to the city to annex some property on the south edge of Burlington, right next to the Nagraki property that you're all probably familiar with. And it was brought into the city. You'll see on your outline there, number 2, the city included Pheasant Run subdivision in an urban renewal district, just like they had to do today. You have to do that. Number 3, the base value at that time of the property was $29,516. The taxes on that property, Pheasant Run, $400 a year. Now that, of course, went to the city, the county, the school district, brucellosis, and all those other things you see on your tax bill. Now, we used the old-style TIF district at that time. It's been a long time ago. And so the city took out a TIF bond for $750,000, as I recall. It's in that range in any event. And that was to pay for the street, sewer, and water. And the city actually took over the complete development of the infrastructure. The city engineer ran the job, went out and got bids and did all of that. All of that is required. Number 5, that TIF bond was paid in full, $895, $570.48 in 2005. So the bond plus all the interest was paid in full in 2005. So it worked. I mean, TIF worked. It paid for the improvements like it was supposed to do. I know there's been a lot of cities and organizations that take advantage of TIF. They don't terminate it when they should and when they're supposed to. They do a 10-year TIF bond and they let it run for 15, 20 years and use it for swimming pools and sidewalks and every other thing, and that's bad. It denies the school district money they need for their operation and, of course, the county for their operation. So properly used, it's a wonderful tool for cities. That TIF bond was released by the city, ordinance number 3232, I've got a copy of it, on about the 11th year. Number 7, this is my favorite. Fiscal year 2006 taxes began the tax gusher payable to the city, the county, and the school district et al. And the taxes as paid were as follows since that time. And I've listed them for you, and you have those letters that I provided at the last meeting from the county assessor and the county auditor and the county treasurer verifying all of these figures. Through your last year tax bill, Pheasant Run raised $1,927,000. That's not bad for one subdivision. Your current tax bill, you all just received in the mail in August, will raise another $232,000 for this subdivision. I had just put down the taxes that have been paid in the last 10 years that was split by the city, the county, etc. When you add in this year's tax bill, it's $2,159,000 that little subdivision has raised. And what did it cost the city of Burlington? $0. It was $0. That's why I say tax increment financing, properly done, is a great advantage to the city. One thing we did in that subdivision, and this came up when we first started this, can the city limit the amount that we would be building houses for? And I argued at that time, I think I had a meeting with Jim in the planning department, and I said, can't be done. Can't be done. We tried that in Pheasant Run 20 years ago, and it didn't work. This is a picture of a house out there. It's a split foyer with a two-car garage, sold for $85,000. That's the first year. This is like the first or second house built out there. And we were trying to limit the house construction cost to $85,000, if you can imagine that. The reason it didn't work is people would come in, well, they wanted granite countertops in the kitchen, or they wanted this, or they wanted that, and it was just impossible to do that, really. This little house is 1704 Sioux Street. I know who owns it, but I won't mention his name. The taxes on that house, now I looked them up, $3,312 a year. That was on an $85,000 house. And, you know, you can't do that anymore. But I just thought you might be interested. You can see what happens. Every year, those taxes go up, and this is going on forever. If Burlington's here 100 years from now, that subdivision is still going to be cranking out $2 million a year in taxes. That's why it's such a good deal. Now, the current request, Park West subdivision, you saw the outline there. I really wanted a cul-de-sac, as I said, but that's okay. This is better for the city, and it'll work out probably better for me in the long run. This subdivision is going to be planned, 16 lots. Some of those, since we changed the zoning to R2, you can have condominiums on those. Land cost, $146,900 plus miscellaneous, as you know, some legal and stuff in there. And the infrastructure cost, $350,000. Now, where does that money come from? Is the city going to kick in on that? No, they're not. The developer gets to pay it all. And if I want to do a TIF, this new style TIF, I accept that responsibility. The money's available, it will be paid totally by me. Now, here's what's important, and on page 2 of the outline I gave you folks. Number 1, all development costs, the development plan conforms to a 1999 comprehensive city plan. I was shocked when I wanted to do the cul-de-sac, and the planning department pulled this document out from somewhere that's been laying around since 1999, I guess, about a street going almost exactly where I planned this street, with the little jog in it and everything. So since 1999, the city has wanted a street through there, or thought that it would be a good idea to have a street through there, but nobody has ever done anything about it. Why is that? Well, streets are expensive, as we all know. The city knows that. And if we don't do a TIF, we're not going to have a street. The land would still be available if the city wanted to buy right-of-way through there and put in a street. That's the second possibility we haven't discussed yet, but it is, you know, it's possible if the city has some kind of a grant they want to use there. So city hasn't done anything since 1999 in this regard, and it's gotten more important all the time. I don't know who did that 1999 plan, but they could see into the future. Number 2, the plan provides a needed possible future street to Mason Road. And that is really important. Could you put that plan right up there again, Eric, please, if you would? There is no place in the city of Burlington that I'm aware of that has this much developable property right in the city. And the only reason it's there is because the people that owned it had it in a trust, and they wouldn't sell 1 inch of it since 1947. And you can see the city has developed all around it, on the east and on the west, and on the south where Mason Road goes. And that left line there, the blue dotted line, is approximately where I would assume a street will go someday. And I hope to, well, maybe I'll talk about that in the future, but you see the bottom part that is owned by the Catholic Church, really a nice piece of property, I might say. It goes right along the edge of their property, and so maybe next year, if I can get Bob Fleming to help me, we'll go talk to the bishop and see if we can get an easement down there, because the street really should go through. Mike Morfeld is willing, I know he is willing, I've talked to him about it, to get the street down that far. His land would go down to that corner. But then we'd have to talk to the bishop or the Pope or somebody, because that's owned by the church, and it was bought, interesting enough, by Tom Daly's bequest, and Tom also gave the city this nice stand here. I would have rather had the bequest than the stand, but
Hey, Dan, you would want to take the bishop with you if you're going to go talk to the church, so.
listen, we have a new bishop in this diocese, and he's really a nice, super nice guy, and educated guy. He's a lawyer. He was a lawyer and went to the seminary and all that. But anyway, that'd be a good place for the street to run, and that would be a good plan for Bob and I to work on maybe next year. Now, yes, I said number 3, all improvements paid for by me. Number 4, affordable workforce housing stressed by the developer that's me, and a designation by the state will encourage builders to build less expensive housing. Now, that's important. Workforce housing is in Iowa law. The legislature some years ago passed another one of their ideas about how to help development. Workforce housing was one of them. How can we get towns to build inexpensive or more inexpensive houses to help all these workers we need now? Well, it doesn't help me, workforce housing. Honestly, it doesn't, except it would help me sell lots because it goes to a builder. And workforce housing provides that if the builder sells a house for less than $250,000, he gets 10% of the cost of that house, of what he put in the house, up to $150,000, that'd be $15,000, back from the state as a tax rebate. That's a pretty good deal for a builder. That's probably more than he would make on building a house anywhere. In addition to that, the state provides that builder can get all of the sales taxes that he paid for all of the material that went into that house. That's 6% there. That's going to interest builders. And that's the target price range that I really want. I honestly don't think we need any more $500,000 and $600,000 houses. They're very nice. But people just can't afford to go there. Even with 4% interest rates on a 30-year mortgage, you can't, you know. Okay, number 5. Increase in real estate taxes to the city of Burlington in the future. The city now receives, you probably won't believe this, $129.46 a year in taxes on the 7.94 acres that I own there. $129.46 per year. That's based on a current valuation of $328, a taxable valuation. Okay, and I've got a letter there because I think sometimes people think some of these figures I put out aren't quite so. I got a letter there from Janelle Lundquist, the county treasurer. That's her computation, not mine. So we can go from $129 a year to substantially more than that if we do this TIF. Now, as you'll see, city will receive 39.479% of the estimated completed taxable value of $118,000. That $118,000 isn't my figure, it's the county assessor. City County Assessor Matt Warren did that at the request of the fellow from the newspaper who I think was, I don't know what he was looking for, but anyway, the 118, that's what the county assessor, I think it's a little bit rich personally. It'll be a while before it takes in that much, but assuming the county assessor is correct, that means the city will be taking in, when this thing is completed, $46,574 a year, which is 39.47% of the taxes raised, okay, of the 118,000 taxes raised. Well, that's quite a jump from $129 a year. So it's worth doing. It's something that is favorable to the city. Number 6, during the 10-year development period, the city will receive $134,400. Now, where'd that come from? That's 38.4% of the development cost of $350,000. State code, and Eric mentioned that a few minutes ago, the state code provides that if I spend $350,000 on infrastructure costs, the city, because it's a TIF district, gets 38.4% of that amount. In Burlington, that would mean $134,000 a year. That's a pretty good deal.
What are you, a
And putting
lawyer, Cahill?
No money in it? Yeah, no money in and $134,000 out over 10 years. Now, if this thing gets done sooner than 10 years, then you'll be back on the tax rolls where you get 39%, you know, like you do in a regular tax bill. Now, there's a caveat in those funds coming back to the city, though. It has to be used for low-income housing, okay? That's fine with me. I think it's a great idea. Burlington needs great help in low-income housing. And I've read in the paper that Charlie Nichols has proposed a plan, which I guess he calls it a block grant, where you can go to a city block that's kind of run down and the people aren't taking care of their property, work something out with them so that the city can contribute and help clean up that block. Great idea. Burlington has so many areas that are just falling apart. And I don't know if you can convince the people to work on it or not, but at least there's going to be $134,000 available to do that if you want to use it for that purpose. I mean, there's a lot of need in low rent or low income housing, but the block grant idea really struck me when I read about that in the paper. But I think it'd be a great use for it. Okay. What are other cities doing about TIFs? Is Burlington all alone out here? That we got some crazy guy in requesting a TIF? No, that's not so. Fort Madison has a TIF. In fact, Mike Moorfeld, the fellow that owns this other 10 acres by me there, he has a TIF in Fort Madison. Said Fort Madison went for it big. He's built a bunch of houses on it already. They aren't necessarily the workforce. I don't think he went that next step and asked for workforce housing. But he has a real nice subdivision going. He's got another one down there that's super nice, but it doesn't have a TIF. When I first bought this land, I contacted the cities surrounding Des Moines, all of the little towns, because I read the Des Moines Register religiously each day. And those cities are growing like weeds out there, as we all know. And in fact, Ankeny is supposedly the 5th fastest growing town in America. It's amazing the growth in West Des Moines. It's just incredible. Well, as I said earlier, Des Moines was really taking it in the short as far as that goes, because all the development was going west. Well, they've changed their tune now. West Des Moines is using TIFs aggressively. In fact, they may be overusing it, and they're using the old style where they go out and post to get a bond, and I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. Grimes, the fellow responded back from Grimes, Iowa, which is one of the suburbs. They use TIFs, residential TIFs, all the time, but he says, we don't do the bond kind. We don't want to put the downside to the city, and I guess on a bond deal, number one, it makes you get closer to your bond limits that you all have. And if the thing goes south, you might have some liability. But they don't use that in Grimes, therefore. So what they do is use the type of TIF that I'm talking about here, where the developer pays all the costs. What can go wrong? Okay, next point I wanted to make. And I added a little sheet here to the thing, your handout. The last page. Okay, is I was interested, what residential development, where is it occurring? Is it in Burlington, or is it in the county? Or is it in West Burlington? Or is it in Danville or Mediapolis? Turns out, if you look at this, these are all the subdivisions that have been done in the last couple of years. I just asked the recorder's office to get that for me, and they did. And except for, you'll see on Burlington, except for Pearson's things, Westbrook Estates there, that was a nice one, of course. Westbrook Estates there, Westbrook Estates there, and Westbrook Estates there. We don't have any, hardly. We have some that got 1 and 2 lots. And of course, we have Scott Zeisers. I put that down. It's pending, and that's 25 lots. That's nice, and it'll be a beautiful subdivision. Of course, Sunrise West is adding on. That's limited to folks 55 or over. Since I'm 76, I could probably get in there if I could afford, if I could get one of those places. But anyway, you will see by looking at that, it's kind of, it's to Burlington's advantage to get busy. And if you get busy, I mean get some lots in here so people can build some houses. Not just my idea. I know the Chamber of Commerce has been preaching that gospel for a long time. Yeah, in fact, I cut stuff out of the paper all the time. This is one from December 25, 2016. I don't know why I even cut it out. I had no plans of buying this land. But it's tax credit program available for Des Moines County projects. And of course, it quotes in there Jason Hutchison about future growth requires housing. Okay. And it affects our growth and our ability to attract and retain workers. That's your Chamber of Commerce. I also just, I guess for the heck of it, educate myself a little bit on costs of lots. Because everybody's been asking me, what are your lots gonna cost? I said, well, I think 35,000, probably. Now, it's not too hard to see how much I'm gonna have in those lots. Take $500,000 and divide it by 16, and you'll come out with $31,000, almost $32,000 per lot. Well, you couldn't do that. You can't do that and make any money at all without a TIF. That's why I say if I don't have a TIF, I'm not putting in a subdivision. You cannot. You just financially cannot do it. And here's what lots are going for in Des Moines County. This has been a learning experience, really. 39.5, 39.5, here's 42, 44, 44, 59, 69. I just asked you, 70,000, 75,000. It's amazing. And those are the lots just down the street from me, where they tore that house down there. Those are about, now they're down to like 69,000 apiece. Where they divided that lot up. I mean, it's a great idea, buy that thing, tear it down. But you have so much money, and they don't have any money in infrastructure. They got a street, they got sewer, they got water, right there, bingo, and they're asking $69,000 for each lot. Well, maybe they won't. Here's a couple of $75,000 ones, 70,000. Here's a nice $80,000 lot. And it goes on and on that way. It's incredible. There was a $100,000 one here, but that was, I think, Randy's place down there. But I'm just thinking, well, maybe I ought to reconsider what I'm gonna have to ask for those lots, but I'm still trying to do that. And here's something else, I'm really interested in this. I don't know if the council is aware of Home Base Iowa. Home Base Iowa is another state program. State does all these programs, and so many people don't follow through with them anyway, but Home Base Iowa is very interesting. If you're a veteran serving, and it was after, 9/11, in that period, from then on, from then to now, in active duty, even a month active duty, you can apply for a $5,000 grant to help you buy a house. And there's another grant you can get here. Oh, the Iowa Finance Authority also has a $2,500 grant if you're in the military. And I think some of these apply to police and fire also. I haven't found that yet. I went to Des Moines and talked to the Iowa Finance Authority people about this. That's $7,500 to help them buy a house if they qualify for that period of time of active duty. It's fantastic, and nobody's doing it. And the state, as a little topper for this program, they budget, probably won't be here next year, but they budget $2 million a year to give these folks another $1,000 towards this project if they qualify, to keep them moving and living in Iowa. I mean, that's the idea. I guess that's why they call it what they do. Home Base Iowa. Anyway, that's it. And then Iowa Finance Authority, I think, does also have projects for police and fire, and I'd love to get some police and fire folks out there in my new subdivision if I get to do it. So, anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer them. I think this is great. The only reason I'm even here tonight is I was on the schedule for the November 20th meeting, and I'm going to be in New York, so I couldn't be here, and I couldn't cancel my tickets, or I would have been here. But and then on December 18th, of course, I'll be here. That's the night you approve it. And the attorney for the city, Mr. Jostin in Des Moines, another bill I get to pay, by the way, in this program, hasn't got the final agreement prepared, which I think we're pretty much in agreement with what the planning department wants. But he hasn't got the final thing ready for the city to sign and accept, nor for me to sign and accept. Now, I'll definitely read it when I get a copy. But thank you for listening. I hope it didn't take up too much of your time.
Before we sit down, questions?
I think you've answered about everything that could possibly.
You good?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Okay. Number 6, we have a public hearing, consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 126 Taxi Cabs and Vehicles for Hire of the Burlington, Iowa Code of Ordinances and deleting Chapter 127 Vehicles for Hire Drivers in its entirety. This is going to be the first reading on this one. Chief? Jim?
Is this basically just do away with references to chapter 127 as we modified codes?
Yeah, it was done away with. It just didn't have that one sentence in the code. I mean, this has kind of already been handled, but it was lacking one sentence. Because we're no longer going to have the authority to set those disqualifiers. Those will be set by the state. I mean, we've already discussed it, just somehow it got left out of there. And the attorney recognized that, so that's what that is. Question?
Sounds good to me. You guys good?
Yes.
We'll probably have 5 more ordinances dealing with taxi cabs in the next year.
Woo! That's how we do it. All right. Okay, thank you, Chief. Number 7 is a motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of this one, of an ordinance prohibiting the construction of wells within the city limits for use of potable water source. Nick McGregor.
Good evening. This ordinance has not changed since its conversation last week, but just to go over it again, it is an amendment to the potable well ordinance. In it has language discussing the non-potable or potable wells. The area on the map on the overhead, there's a known contaminated site that's been monitored. In order to comply with DNR standards, we have to restrict non-potable or potable wells from being constructed in this site. So if there's any questions, I can answer those.
Any questions?
Not for me. Can we waive that?
Yes,
You guys good with that?
absolutely.
I don't see anybody having a problem with it.
No.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Number 8, a motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 31 Riverfront Advisory Committee of the Burlington Municipal Code.
This change modifies the composition of the Riverfront Advisory Committee. It reduces the number of members from 9 to 5. We have one too many. We right now have 6. However, one of them has been elected to council, so effective January 1, I would assume that he would likely be the one whose position would come off of the group to get down to that 5 members. It also changes representation from being my position to the park superintendent or designee. That's the person who's been going to these meetings over the last few years anyway and has the day-to-day contact with activities down at the riverfront anyway. We also added a section for the committee to make annual report to the city council summarizing activities. This is kind of stems out of a request from the council to see about getting this added to all of our different committees over time. And we use this opportunity to do that.
You guys good?
Yes.
Another waivable one?
Yes.
I would say yes.
Let's waive it. All right. Number 9, it's a resolution approving agreement with Burlington Steamboat Days for concessions at the riverfront properties known as Burlington Memorial Auditorium, Port of Burlington, and Burlington Depot. Jim, who's
Sure. So we've, stemming out of, after meeting with representatives to get something in place with the American Music Festival. I'm so good with these acronyms, AMF. One of the things that we needed to get on the backside of that was to get a renewal on our arrangement with Steamboat Days. This is a contract that we've been doing pretty much annually recently. Given that we have a 3-year arrangement with AMF, they looked at having a 3-year arrangement on this for provision of services. It extends their level of service. In the previous contract, they provided alcohol services for the port. This would extend it to the depot and the auditorium as well for any activities that occur at those 2 locations. I'll let a representative come up and talk about anything else that would go with this. It also talks about the level of service that we provide in regards to Steamboat Days itself, the event, the 2 weeks surrounding it for providing setup, tear down, police protection during the event. Has language in it too in regards to the carnivals that have been held in the past, although it's not envisioned to be occurring under my understanding for this next year. I'll turn it over to you.
Correct. Well, there really aren't a lot of changes to the document. Stephanie Kozlowski, past president, Burlington Steamboat Days. We essentially took the contract from last year, made changes according to the AMF proposal, and then extended the term, like Jim mentioned. Other than that, though, there really weren't a lot of modifications. It's already been sent to the city attorney as well for a final read-through, and we cleaned up the contract a bit. It had been kind of copied and pasted a number of times over the years, so this is a nice clean copy for you all. Do you have specific questions?
I do, under the, where it says term of agreement, provided Burlington Steamboat Days has the option in its sole discretion or at its sole discretion to terminate the agreement. And so where's the option for the city to terminate the agreement? Is that the place where it says if you goof up, then we can terminate it? Is that the place?
Correct. At the termination language later on in the contract, there are reasons for that, and that's usually, yeah. This allows us, I think originally that had said 30 days, and we extended that to 120.
And I hadn't even realized or paid attention that had been in the contract previously.
Yeah.
The 30 days was not quite the same issue when we had a spot where your alcohol services was for one of the buildings, and we had someone else with a license for the other buildings, and if we had a change, they could modify their arrangement to cover that if we needed to.
Correct.
The 120 days gives us time if we needed to find an alternative vendor or set up ourselves to provide alcohol services for the facility, we could get that accomplished.
That makes sense.
Any other questions?
Not I.
Okay. Thank you for coming down.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I don't think that the only change outside of the length of the service, the only change other than getting it to reflect that we have a different vendor for AMF, or with AMF covering the whole area, was increasing the cap for police reimbursement to 17,000. It had been at 14.5 or something like that,
Correct.
14.9.
And then increase essentially because it's a 3-year term, give a larger cap for
We wanted
changes.
to make sure we could cover increases in costs over a 3-year time frame.
Good to go.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Number 10, resolution approving the Burlington Depot rental rates. Nick?
Before you is a resolution to establish, I guess, rental rates at the depot. With the Great Room renovation project, in the past, we've never really had the ability to rent out the depot in recent history. In front of you is kind of the auditorium and ports rental rates, and then highlighted in red is the depot. Bus broken down into 3 different classes for nonprofits. I forget the classifications layout. But we use the North Bay in the port as the basis on how to establish rental rates at the depot. Because there are no tables and chairs readily available at the facility, it brings down its value a little bit. And so for instance, the class 1 for 2018 is $105 for daily rental, $130 for class 2, and $180 for class 3. But then you also see an increase for fiscal year, or for calendar year 19, and then calendar year 20 as well.
We started this table, as far as I can remember, 2013-ish. We put in place a 3-year rate schedule like this for the first time for the other facilities, just so that we have reservations that are done oftentimes 1.5 years in advance. So just making sure that we have a rate schedule that covers not just the next year, but multiple years so that we can get those reservations on the board. And as Nick put this in here, these 3 different facilities are all in the same general area, and we wanted to have a rate structure that was kind of consistent between them
Correct.
to the extent
I would say
possible.
that there might be need some analysis after the first year of rentals, depending on the number of rentals if it gets
Right
rented. Because of the floor in there is unique to some of the other facilities. It's and the use of the building is a little unique as well. Unfortunately, when you rent the place, you can't shut the facility down because it is a transit hub. So if you rent the facility, you can't just go close the doors. People will still be able to occupy the space of the building. We'll be able to use like some sort of a divider, some banisters, I guess is maybe the right word, with some rope types, but the overall space
That's still gonna
is
be-
not able to be completely, isolated from the public.
Do you have,
Only 2 trains a day, so it's.
do you have an idea, I assume, let's say the class 3 rental on the Auditorium Arena is $13.50, are we covering costs with that number, or are we?
I don't know that I could answer that.
It's been so
We
long
gotta
since
start
we've,
somewhere.
it's been so long since we have had staff that's been doing the setup and tear down. I think that's varied from event to event, how
can
well
honestly-
that's done on covering it.
I couldn't honestly tell you how many class 3s have been done at the auditorium in recent years. I'd have to go back and take a look and see what Benny Works, I'm sure, kept track of that, but
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So there's an event coming up December 8th. Is this the scale you used for that?
did not use that.
You did not?
It
use
was prior to that. Kind of wanted to use that as a threshold. I think it's at $100, which is within line of where we are, within $5.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of a good idea to see where that's at. They are getting their own liquor license for that event. So it'll be a kind of a good test rental.
Any other questions for Nick?
I don't believe so.
Thank you, sir. Good deal.
Thank you.
Number 11, a resolution establishing a 2-hour parking limit in the 200 block of Jefferson Street. Nick McGregor.
With the recent project of the expansion of parking in the 200 block, I feel it's best that we need to make the hours of parking similar to the rest of Jefferson Street, because the parking will be very, very similarly coordinated. It is currently a 1-hour parking recommendation, and the resolution changes it to 2-hour parking.
That makes sense. When'll that be open, by the way?
This week. They were power washing it today, so I noticed that they were still working on some of the bollards in front of where the new PD will be, but then that should be about it.
Good. Looks nice.
You guys good?
Good, great.
Right on. Thank you, Nick. All right, for the proposed consent agenda, number 1, a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. You guys good? Number 2 is a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Alliant Energy Incorporated for all-night lighting service on Course Street.
In front of you is a request for a new street light installation off of Course Street. As you can see on the overhead projection, the yellow dots are existing LED lights that I've been confirmed from PD that are currently working. The requested is at the red dot. Due to its proximity of the other ones, PD does not believe that there's any more lighting that can improve that situation. And I do not recommend installation of this street light. I feel like the area is fairly well lit, and we have to keep costs in consideration here. As these things start to roll in, we have to have some sort of parameters on where we would make kind of a judgment call on things, whether or not it makes sense.
And we, yeah, I about to say, you kind of touched on that. I believe it was you and maybe somebody else too, that we have to be judicious moving forward. Yeah, oh, it was Jim. Yeah, it was Jim. So, but yeah, absolutely. I wish, it's kind of hard. I wish we had some type of parameters written down or something, that would be a better,
I don't know that there's really a great hard and fast. There've been
Yeah,
there've been a
right.
couple that, is, the police department has looked at for a variety of reasons. I think that, there's some areas that, there's been some concerns about, pattern of crime, pattern of safety concerns, an issue with where it's pretty obvious that you've got a lighting concern that's more extreme than others, that it makes it easier. But I don't think there's a great hard and fast that any of them have been able to come up with
Do we,
for making an evaluation.
do we still have are we still offering the same setup that, because I know we did this with somebody before, that they wanted a light installed and the neighborhood came together and they paid for it?
Yeah, I think that any,
The next one that we will discuss, the housing subdivision is paying for the installation costs. But I guess what I was considering was the ongoing monthly payment of
Right.
$9.94.
that we've got a lot of places where people have individually decided or
To pay for the
to
bill?
go ahead and make an arrangement with Alliant for their own and pay the bill. I think the mayor mentioned, or former mayor mentioned that,
Mayor
that
Davidson.
their area, had gotten together and paid for, but I think somebody ultimately had to have the bill to them, and then they split the cost.
Right.
And I believe that costs $12.41 a
And I
month.
think our share was like $4 a month, I think.
I just want to make sure we keep getting that message out that if people do want to step up, if it's that important to them, that's still an option.
And I did speak with Nancy last week, and we discussed the requests for all the streetlights coming in.
Nancy who?
Nancy Schnatt from Alliant. We had talked about back in, I don't know when it was, 2012 era, they went around and looked at all of the lighting in town and removed a bunch of the mid-block lights. And so I guess from seeing the amount that, I mean, if you were to approve all the ones up to tonight, that would be 11 in 2 months. And I just see that, I'm not saying that there isn't lights that need to be installed, but if you continue this on, it could be tens of thousands of dollars in added costs that we shed back in, 7 years ago, and now we're adding them back on.
Yes, sir.
So I want to be cautious moving forward on how we look at these. And I'll try and give as much information as needed for this, but at some point, I'm going to have to make kind of a recommendation from my standpoint.
Well said. Any other questions for Nick?
I have a question. Is there any conversations taking place with Alliant? Because a lot of these new lights are the LED, and they provide more lights, because it looks like those lights are pretty well spaced out evenly. But is there any conversation about replacing those? Because on a property that I manage, I called them and they replaced them all with these new LED lights. It's in their best interest because they're more efficient. Has there been any discussion about that, about maybe going through these neighborhoods and replacing some lights?
When we worked with Alliant back in 2012, we started a process having a conversation. They didn't have any program for doing LED lights, and they didn't want to do it. We became part of initial rollout of a different view, though, and I don't know what year that started, but it's a couple of years ago, and what they've done is as they have had lights go out, they have replaced them with LED heads.
Correct.
And as they go out, they're going to continue to do that.
Now, that doesn't save us a tremendous amount of money. They have a separate rate schedule for unmetered lights that are LED versus the non-LED, but it's not a tremendous amount different cost.
Correct.
But businesses still have the option to do what you did.
Well, yeah,
But,
my only point is the LED lights provide a lot more
yeah,
illumination.
it's a nice light. It's good and clean.
Well, then this item does not belong on a consent agenda. If you're
That would have been my second recommendation,
If
is
you're
if
recommending
my
against it,
recommendation
then-
is no, that they should probably both be moved to
Unless
the,
council thinks it should be.
No, we can move that.
Look at that.
Okay. Removing number 2 off of consent. Is everybody good?
Yep.
Where'd we get you from again, Nick? What a find. All right. Number 3, you have a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Alliant Energy Incorporated for all-night lighting service in the Sunrise West subdivision. Mr. McGregor.
unfortunately, this is not an aerial, but this is something that Alliant did, and I thought I would borrow it so I wouldn't have to duplicate the process. There's 4 streetlights being requested by the Sunrise West subdivision. They are seen in the yellow. It's a little harder to see, but there are current streetlights on the corners. You can see their little dots there with little illumination patterns on there. And so these are again mid-block requests. Sunrise West is a newer subdivision, but my biggest issue with this request, if you would show the type of light, is more in line with the style of light that they have out there. They have a 20-foot pole with an ornamental or it's called a colonial style fixture. And unfortunately, they're too high in the air. They're 20 foot where they should be more like at 12 foot. And the glass is very opaque, and the light is very yellow, so it doesn't give very much illumination. I think if lights were changed to clear LED with a little bit more shine, they would likely not need the mid-block. In previous conversation, I didn't know that we had accepted these lights. My staff told me that we had not accepted them because of the ornamental factor, and that Alliant wasn't going to maintain them. After speaking with Alliant, they do maintain these, and we are being billed for the current lights out there. The request comes in where Sunrise West would pay for the installation costs. They have underground electricity, so it would need to go into wherever they have a boring at and pull that from there. The request would be that we would pay for the ongoing monthly bill for these. And because of the style light that they have in that other area, if they were to change those first, I would see maybe the ability to approve something, but until those are upgraded to something a little bit more useful, I guess, I would not recommend installing these.
One thing I've noticed out there, because I live there, is we have a lot of the yellow lights, and we also have some white lights.
And they work a lot better, do they? I think so.
Yeah. But how did that happen then?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
And this is one of the things that Eric and I have discussed with some of the subdivisions, is that prior to accepting the infrastructure, having a layout on what design standards are for lighting. But yet, these are mid-block requests. So I don't know that we would say that mid-block lights would be within our design standards.
Questions?
Again, we should take that off the consent agenda.
Are you guys good?
Yes.
So what do you think should be done out here, Nick?
I would think that the current lights should probably be replaced with some of the clearer, they have a clearer glass one that are LED. They're a little bit more visible. The subdivision isn't honestly going to want to hear this, but they should go with a wooden pole and a regular overhead arch, because they do illuminate a lot better than these colonial style fixtures. But that'll be a conversation that I'll likely have to have with the subdivision
Right.
people, so I don't want to make those kind of vast changes for this type of request.
Works for me. You guys good?
It's gotta be a trade-off with them then.
They're nice people out there.
I heard an important bishop lives out there too.
Would you be willing to, would it be okay, if they were wanting the mid-light, not to take care of the ones at the intersections, if it was all at their cost and they had the ongoing maintenance and care for
Yeah,
it?
it wouldn't bother me.
Okay, handle it. Number 4, resolution authorizing internal loan from general fund to tax increment revenue fund. Steph?
Now the exciting finance part. So this is an annual resolution that we do to recap some of the funds that we spend on attorney fees for doing TIF projects and our annual TIF requirements. So every year we've been doing 20,000. So this isn't a new resolution, it's just one we do annually. Does anybody have any questions?
We picked a $20,000 cost because we pretty easily hit this level of cost for staff time and attorney fees. It doesn't take much work for us to get to that.
Yep.
Good?
Good.
Good. Number 5, a resolution obligating funds from the Greater Burlington Partnership TIF rebate, man, I'm having a hard time reading, rebate sub-fund of the city's urban renewal tax revenue fund for appropriation to the payment of annual appropriation tax increment rebate payments due to be paid in the succeeding fiscal year. That was a tough one. Stephanie?
Yes, so the next 3 resolutions are all the same, where each year we need to do this annual appropriation. The county auditor sends me the estimated tax revenue that these properties are gonna generate, and then basically with the rebates and the development agreements that have already been approved, we pay that amount back. So this first one for Greater Burlington Partnership, they've estimated about $35,000. We round up just so we don't have to come back to you if the taxes change, something changes. So that's why this one is $45,000, that we will rebate back to them in this next coming year.
How many more years are left on this one?
Is this the fourth year? Is that right? I think it's the fourth year. This is a 10-year arrangement.
10
years.
And it
Yeah,
had
10
to,
years.
had to do with the sale of their spec building.
Right.
The next one with Weingard had to do with the development of the old Fairway Center.
Yes.
And this might be maybe the fourth year on that. So if it
Yeah, I
is the
don't know
fourth
that.
year, it might only be the third year on the partnerships one. And that was a 12-year arrangement with the Weingard one, 6 years, at 75%, 6 years at 50%. Is that right? I'm going off of memory from.
75% is this year.
75%.
Yeah, so 75% for 6 years and then 50% for 6 years. And then the final one, with the, property sale on,
Yeah, Burlington Crossing.
Burlington Crossings, it was 6-year, 100%, 6 years at 75%. And again, these were all set up annual appropriations. When you do an original agreement, on an annual appropriation basis, only the 1 year counts against your debt service or debt limit. If you don't do the annual appropriation, a full potential rebate amount would count towards it. But
So
we're
that's why
going,
it's set up the way it is.
yeah.
So basically, December 1st, I certify all the new TIF debt we have with the county auditor. So that's why you see these annual appropriations come through at this time, because by December 1st, I send the resolutions over and they know then that this amount will be rebated back, so.
Is this the first year for the Burlington
Yes.
Crossings?
Yep, they have value now, so.
All right. Boy, that's so nice to have Burlington Crossing.
I really like the way this is done with the rebate thing rather than the upfront. We'd never be able to do it if we had to do the
No.
upfront things.
I'm gonna go ahead and read these other two, Steph, while
Sure.
you're standing there, and we'll, if they have any. So that's number 5. Number 6 is a resolution obligating funds from the Weingard TIF rebate subfund of the city's urban renewal tax revenue fund for appropriation to the payment of annual appropriation tax increment rebate payments due to be paid in the succeeding fiscal year. And that's number 6. That's for the Weingard TIF. And I'm just gonna read number 7. It's a resolution obligation funds from the Burlington Crossing TIF rebate subfund of the city's urban renewal tax revenue fund for appropriation to the payment of annual appropriation tax increment rebate payments due to be paid in the succeeding fiscal year. So, do you guys have any other questions for Steph?
No,
I don't.
thank you.
Stephanie, where did we get you from again? Oh, you're a Burlington girl, that's right. Good job, Steph. Next, we have number 8, a resolution approving annual financial report. Stephanie Stuker.
So like it states, this is our annual financial report. It's due to the state December 1st also. It will be published in the paper once you approve it next week. Basically, it's just showing for fiscal year 17, all the revenues and the expenditures by function. We didn't go over budget in any item line, so that's always a happy day when we tally that, so. Any questions on this? This is, again, just recapping all our finances. We have had our audit, and we're working on the financial report that will come out in December, but this is what's due to the state, so it's a form we have to follow, and it's connected with the budget form too. They all kind of roll in together.
Council,
Thanks, Stephanie.
we good? You
One
guys good
thing-
down here?
One thing I'd point out, revenues are significantly higher than expenditures for the fiscal year. That does have to do with borrowing for several capital projects that we will be spending down cash balances during the course of this year. The main projects that's the case with the flood wall, we had the funds borrowed in the last fiscal year with the expenditures in this fiscal year. The rehab of the police facility is the same thing, borrowed last fiscal year, we're spending this fiscal year. And then we had 3 major street projects that we had funds borrowed for the roundabout, although most of the expenditures on that were in last year. But we also had funds borrowed for Agency Street, both west and east, with the expenditures, the majority of those going to be in the current fiscal year.
Also, that refunding of that bond, that was 7 million. And that was one where we took in the bond proceeds and then a month later paid off the bond. So the expenditures are higher by that much and the revenues, so.
Getting her done. You guys good?
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 9, stay right where you are,
Yes,
Steph.
last one.
We have a resolution approving annual urban renewal report.
Another report that the state wants to see by December 1st, so they all roll in together. This is just recapping all our TIF activity from the fiscal year 17. Basically, it lists out all the TIF debt, anything you put in the revenues we get by each district, and then the debt we've paid back, and then it gets sent to the state legislator so they can compile it all and see all the TIF activity that's going on statewide.
Every city in the state is required by December 1 to do this.
Yes, if they have TIF debt.
What an overload for them, right? December 1.
Lots of reports, yeah.
That's the reason why you love your job, isn't it,
Yes.
Steph? We
I-
appreciate
And
you.
you do it well.
I don't know how the state feels about these reports. I think of it, when you do a one-size-fits-all, it is pretty cumbersome and really, I don't know how beneficial it is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim.
I think in total, they probably get some information, but to look at this report and really know what's going on, no. It's a confusing
Fun,
report.
fun. All right.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Number 10, a resolution approving an amendment to the agreement with Veenstra and Kim Inc. to perform the design of Agency Street widening project. Mr. McGregor?
The resolution in front of you will approve an amendment to the professional services agreement that we have with Veenstra and Kim to do the design work on the east portion of Agency Street. We awarded contract back in May for $170,000. This is an amendment of not to exceed $35,000 to $35,200 to do right-of-way, survey work, acquisition planning. I think the whole scope is in there, but ultimately, there's a lot of right-of-way that we need to acquire in this project. There's a lot of temporary construction easements, especially along the north side, where there are several different parcel owners along that parking lot. And this is the area that I want to get completed because this can really hold back the timing of a project. It's what held back the roundabout from getting completed the year before. So they have done all the design work. I'd like them to continue working and keep my staff working on other projects, so,
To me, that's the bottom line, because you guys have got other things.
correct. The budget for this is 2.1 million, with, at 205,000 not to exceed. This brings it to about 10% engineering costs. When we would do inspection, it adds another 7% on, 17% of an overall budgeted amount, is pretty reasonable, so hopefully they can get all the right-of-way work done for cheaper than that, so.
Right on.
While you're standing there, were you going to talk about Agency Street at
Yep.
the end of the meeting?
I got a bunch of other stuff at the end, I'll
Okay.
include you in on.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next we have resolution approving energy efficiency plan amendment to the agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Interstate Power and Light Company to provide grant funding for the design and implementation of programs that improve market awareness and adoption of new technologies through the Bright Ideas Grant Program. Piano Man.
Jerry Parks, 2729 South Main, and I'm the chairperson of the Renewable Energy Committee. I asked if I could take just a few minutes and bring to current members and future city council members a little update from the committee we have a really exciting kind of an opportunity coming up here relating to the amendment that's on your agenda. As most of you know, Alliant Energy, through their Bright Ideas grants, has provided the majority of the funding for the 5 electric car charging stations that were put in over the last couple of years. These stations are called Level 2 stations. They take anywhere from 8, 10, 12 hours to fully charge a car from 0 to 100% charge based on the model and the type of a car. A few months ago, Alliant approached us and they're interested in putting a network of fast charging stations across the state of Iowa. Fast chargers are called Level 3. It's kind of the next level of technology. And a fast charger can charge a standard car in 30 to 45 minutes. So it's just a monstrous, huge improvement over the Level 2 chargers. They selected a number of cities to be the initial sites for this network, and Burlington was one select, and they asked us if we would try and select a site here. And so we met, and the one that we all agreed would be the most likely would be our #1 attraction in the city, Fun City. And so we've been meeting with fund representatives from Fun City, and it looks like everything is coming together for an agreement. So what you have in your packet is an addendum to the original agreement that Alliant has with the city of Burlington, and it basically adds 2 Level 2 chargers at Fun City and 1 Level 3 DC fast charger. And then it also changes, the first group of chargers, the agreement was that they would be free to the public for 5 years as part of the grant agreement. A Level 2 charger uses so much energy, it would put Fun City out of business if it was free. So they did change the contract to allow Fun City to charge a fee for people to charge up their cars at the fast charger. At the moment, there's not a single fast DC fast charger, a public charging station in the state of Iowa. As I said, they're working with a number of cities and other cities around the state to kind of get some in. We're in the first group. We don't know if we're going to be the very first, or if this all comes together, we'll at least be in the top, the top group. But it's possible we would be the first fast charging station in the state of Iowa.
Tell them we want to be #1, Jerry. Just
I've
tell them.
I've told them. We're working really quickly. I got this thing about a week ago, and man, I just hustled right down to City Hall to get it on the agenda tonight, so. Let's see what else I can add here. I don't know, that's pretty much the story. We will be, we have written a contract between the city and Fun City, just like we did with the city in Hy-Vee and the city with SCC, and it's basically the same contract. And we didn't know how long they would take to review it. We found out they signed it already, and Friday afternoon it was done. So we will be bringing that to you for the next city council meeting also for your review and
So
hopefully
if
approval. Pardon?
if they're charging a fee for charging
Yeah.
on your Level 2s, are they going to also charge a fee for charging on the Level 3?
No, the Level 2s will still be free to the public.
Oh,
And the only charge will be if you charge up at a Level 3.
Level 3, okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah. The project is going to be about a total of $60,000. Alliant is providing the bulk of the funding. Fun City is providing some, and our committee is providing some. And we're also looking for other sources too, because it's going to be a little bit of a stretch for our committee. But so that's kind of the story. Questions?
You're doing it, kid. You're doing it.
The Renewable Energy Committee has, how much do you get annually?
5,000.
5,000.
And that comes out of, is that hotel motel or local option sales tax? And so we've had a sub-fund within local option sales tax. You set that out separate this last year as a separate capital project so that we can keep track of that a little bit easier. We do give them the discretion as a committee out of that 5,000 as it builds up to do different projects to come out of it. They make a recommendation for how we're going to use those funds. We still have ultimate authority as a city for the expenditure of that money, but you do give them the authority to make recommendations for how that fund should be used. And they've been very proactive and done a lot of projects over the last few years, both out of that funding source and really on their own, looking at other things to do too.
I would like to think that group does more with less. I'll tell you what, you guys have done a phenomenal job.
About giving us more?
No, I didn't say that. I think I'll give you less, but I'll tell you what, a phenomenal job, tell everybody.
He's
Good
setting
job.
you up, Jerry.
Thank you very much, thank you.
That is awesome, okay. We have set date for public hearings, consideration of plans and specs for the Flint River Trail, Phase 1, South 8 for December 4th, and consideration of development agreement with Park West LLC for the West Avenue Mason Road Urban Renewal Area, that is for December 18th. We have discussion items tonight. Our first presentation is Fireball Run. CEO is here tonight.
Is that me?
That would be you, Chad Palmer. Class of 87.
Got my own clicker.
Chad Palmer, live here in Burlington, 13256 Fife Road, just outside of the city limits, unfortunately, huh, Shane? We had a discussion about that,
We
actually.
talked, yeah, I'd say we talked about that. We talked about that again.
Were you wanting a voluntary annexation? You said unfortunately.
No, we're just fine out there, you bet.
Way to go.
So the reason I'm here is Shane and I participated in this thing called the Fireball Run. And the kids at Burlington High School, Aldo Leopold Middle School, and now I've lost the other,
West Burlington.
West Burlington Schools, and the other middle school, I can't remember the. Ed Stone, thank you. All helped us in the pursuit of the clues and the missions and that sort of thing, and without their help, we wouldn't have known what we were up to. But Shane and I were lucky enough to participate in this thing, and I put this slideshow together here. The missing child is what Shane and I were really doing this for. Number one reason. Number two reason was to promote the city of Burlington to the rest of the world. And I don't know if you folks knew, but this Fireball Run, although a lot of people haven't heard of it, has over 4 million viewers in the international audience on Amazon Prime. When I heard that number, I was very surprised, considering I'd never heard of it until prior to the day that Chelsea called and asked if I'd want to participate. But with 4 million viewers, that's an awful big audience for this small town called Burlington, Iowa. I put in here, this was the team that we met with out at the high school this was a week ago, I guess, wasn't it, Shane?
Okay.
And we got them all to do what we did every morning with the Fireball Run, where you had to pump your fist and tell them how excited you were, and we got them to go with it. But this is just a review, and I'm not going to go through every slide in detail like I did with the kids, but it's not narcissism here, but because I was taking all the selfies with everybody and Shane was taking selfies with his phone, I didn't get all of his pictures, so I have, most of these have me with somebody else.
It's better that way.
He said I was the pretty one anyway, so I don't know.
That's
But
right.
there's a couple of people here that we met, and I need to go back here a step. This guy right here was the director. His name was Phil Tan, and you may have seen him if you were at the audience when they were here in Burlington, but Phil is a very well-known stunt coordinator, stunt director, really important person in the Hollywood scene. And next to him was the producer. This was J.J. Sanchez. But Phil, being a stunt guy, Shane and I got to meet him on the very first night. And of course, I'm curious about things that stuntmen do, and I always wondered how close they got to each other when they were punching and fighting and stuff. Well, this Phil Tan has fought with Jackie Chan and other famous people that you know. So I decided that him and Shane ought to duke it out and see what happens. So this is a little video. Whoops. Can you hit play on that? See if it'll.
I had to put it on him, man. Show him the part where I put it on him, Chad.
I suppose it's not gonna. Is it not gonna play?
Great. Let me tell him what happened.
So Shane starts running his mouth, and
Not Shane.
it was an act. And Phil swings at him, it looks just like he hits him, and the video, I wish it would have played, that would have been,
But I was
part of
about
fun.
this far away.
And it is literally 4 feet away from him. But the angle of the camera and everything, it was perfect. But it was something that we learned on the first day. These were some of the cars. The kids really thought that was cool. So I challenged them. I said, which cars do you think these 2 license plates belong to? And these are real license plates off the cars. I do 212 and I do 208. It took me a while to figure out what that even meant until you saw the cars that they went on, and it makes sense. That's how fast they go. One was a Lamborghini and the other one was a Vector M12. I don't even know what that thing was, but these 2 cars were considered the exotics, and they always got front row, you know, when we were lining up in each of the cities, because everybody wanted to see these cars. Well, we got to know the drivers of these cars, and after listening to them, I'm glad we were driving the Ford Explorer from
And
Schottenkirk.
we only did what, 128, Chad?
I don't know how fast we went.
I do.
But,
I was watching
that you'll have to watch the series, I guess, to know how fast we went. But these guys have no air conditioning. The windows didn't roll down, and if you remember the old cars, we had to pull the vent to let the cool air come in the car. That's how they got air in these cars. We started in Eau Claire. And one of the things that Shane and I did, of course I say Shane and I, but I tasted horseradish straight out of the ground, and I will never do that again. Shane got to sort through horseradish to try to find nuts and bolts and metal parts and places and that sort of thing. And he got a lot of static for this because he only got 6 out of 10 of those.
You're really going to bring
Metal
that up right
things.
here tonight,
I thought tonight would be a good night to bring that up again. Because the cameraman comes outside, and of course, cameraman's job is to try to build drama and everything, make it more interesting. He comes out and he says, hey, Shane, so I hear that you got 6 out of 10. How do you feel about that? He said, everybody else got like 8 or 9 out of 10. And Shane's like, really, dude? You just brought that up? Why is that important? Anyway, we got to see Jack Dempsey's his signature on a registration card up there. There's enough people in this room that remember that name, Jack Dempsey. Shane was pretty excited about that, because he knew who Jack Dempsey was. It wasn't that he fought in Eau Claire, it was that he reffed a fight in Eau Claire, and that was pretty significant. He got to see the signature. I got to drag race the Ford Explorer from Schottenkirk, and I will say that the fastest it went was 89 miles an hour on the track. Within a quarter mile, I think we went 78, and my response time was 15.72. No, that was my
What was your time?
That was my time. That was my elapsed time for the race. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And we met these 2 guys while we were there, Paul Bunyan and his babe, Blue Ox. And then they put me inside this hamster ball first day, and let me tell you, it was hot in there. It was way hot. And you put you inside this thing, then they stick the shop vac inside of there, and then they blow it up with air. And I was expected to race out to the firemen in town, who had cold beer, by the way, while I'm in this hot thing inside this thing. And
Did a phenomenal job, by the way.
went out and back, and we won that race, I guess. That was at Half Moon Beach in Eau Claire. Eau Claire, I must say, I was really surprised by the things that you could do in Eau Claire. And I think that was what this was all about. You know, Burlington had what we were sharing was the best of our community. All of these other communities we went to were also sharing the best of their community. A little town named Stockholm, Wisconsin, which is right on the shores of Lake Pepin on the Mississippi River. We found a couple of things. All through the race, there were missions each day, and then there were clues, and then there were also missions that were not true. And we had to decipher which ones were real and which ones were fake. Well, this one was the first bogus clue that we had, and thankfully we figured that out. I got to drive the steamboat up there with the paddle boat. Me and the captain got to chum it up a little bit. And it was that's what propelled that boat, were the paddle wheels, and I thought that was pretty interesting. We went to Lake City, where one of the worst maritime accidents happened in on Lake Pepin in that area, where 98 people perished, and it's still one of the worst disasters on the water in the United States. We also got to hold a 150-year-old flag, and I was surprised by how well preserved that flag was. Only had 33 stars on it.
And now has only 32.
Somebody may have taken one.
Nobody ever catches that. All right.
We got to hold, Shane got to hold the Dr. Mayo's medical what'd you call that thing?
Medical bag?
Medical bag, I guess. I was thinking like cash or something, but that was pretty cool. We also, you can't hardly see it up there in the upper picture, but John Picard, not the Star Trek John Picard, but John Picard was the first man in history to go into the atmosphere, and he had basically a weather balloon that he did it in, and we got to hold that latex weather balloon. We also gave CPR. We learned how to use an AED. Shane about died while we were doing that.
Chad, you did a phenomenal job, too. You carried me that day, my friend.
And we're going to miss this video as well. I love the expression on the face here. Did you know that there is an entire job, like a whole career track for people to play bells, and it's called a carillonneur. And to be a carillonneur, you have to play at least 23 bells. Well, this guy was playing 53, and Shane got to play Mary Had a Little Lamb for the entire city of Rochester, Minnesota.
And I rocked him, too. I rocked him. It was awesome.
Meanwhile, we get done with that. It's 90 plus degrees. The humidity's insane, and they expect us to get on a bike and run around town and take pictures of all the sculptures in downtown Rochester. If you haven't been down there, that's really cool too. It's really quite extraordinary, their downtown area. They have a lot of public sculpture that they've got there. Shane's on the bike, and I was running around town. So while Shane's leisurely driving the bike around looking for him, I'm meanwhile running from one end of the town to the next, getting my pictures there. If you could look really close, though, Shane wasn't very so leisurely. He was. I think that was when we finally determined that you were the sweater and I was the shirt.
Yeah, I got dehydrated that day.
We met Culvert Man up in where was that at? That was in Nodine, Minnesota, or Dakota, Minnesota. Nodine. Culvert Sales is where it was at. And it was just kind of a testament to all the silly things that they would find along the route, that we had to do. Boscobel, Wisconsin is one of our favorite stops. We got to meet the police and the local mayor, and Shane got to hold a gun that was used it was a replica gun from the Civil War, and it was also used in the movie Glory. Another fun fact there was that we had the exotic cars were racing and drag racing down the main street of that town while Shane and I were talking to the police, and the sheriff and the local state police guy was there, the trooper was there, and we said, "Hey, aren't you guys going to do anything about that?" And he goes, "It's a parade." We were in Dubuque, we rode the elevator. Did you know that elevator was, Mr. Davidson, you're a history buff. Did you know that elevator was installed by a dentist in town? Because he didn't want to he wanted to go home for lunch. He lived on top of that hill and worked at the bottom of the hill. The only way to get home took him over an hour. So he decided to build this elevator so he could go home, take a nap, and then come back to his practice within an hour. It's now owned by a private, it's a couple that owns it. It's a privately owned piece now of history. Finland Place Elevator. We wore some goofy stuff and paddled a boat up in Dubuque. Then we went to Dyersville, got to see the Farm Toy Museum. That's really worth the trip. And we got to hold a toy that auctioned off for more than $20,000, a little bitty thing up here that baled hay. Stopped in LeClaire, went to Galesburg. I don't have any pictures of Galesburg. I don't know why, but Galesburg had a great layout for us for lunch. They did a fantastic job. Then the pinnacle of this was reaching Burlington, Iowa, and Shane and I were just overwhelmed by the response. And I think in all the other fireballers, there were 34 other teams, everyone commented on how well the community represented and came out to see us and participated. And I know that there's been some MacGyver awards given away with some of the help that people took and helped us with there, but really phenomenal. Burlington just really did a great job. I stole this from one of the videos that they had up there, and I just loved that look on his face, like, oh boy, look at this. To get Ripley's Believe It or Not to choose us as one of their odd spots, and to be the first one that they chose was a huge ordeal, and it just speaks to, that's going to be a legacy that lasts forever, right? It's never going to go away. And it just speaks to the investment that we made in this Fireball run, and this experience is going to pay dividends years after year. One other note on that is that, one of the benefits that we found from the Fireball run, talking to other participants, is that they now want to come back here to Burlington and spend their money and maybe buy and invest in our community. But they also talked about how the followers of Fireball Run, the viewers, want to follow the trek. So I suspect after next year, there's going to be more visitors coming here just to participate and see the things that the Fireball Run exposed while they were here. So,
What kind of tasks was required for here in Burlington?
you know, I wish we knew.
I know
Shane and I
So you
didn't,
didn't have
I
to
know
do it.
Weingard was a participant.
One of them was wine guards, one of them was something out to Kenny's Roller Ranch. They had to do something out there
Yeah,
with the roller
and
skate.
Chelsea, actually, am I just taking away some of your conversation, or can you tell us?
next, so I can touch on that.
Okay.
She knows all those answers. Shane and I had to basically bail on anything local. It's funny because they only gave you so much time. Everything that we were doing, we had to run here, run there, because you only had a certain window of time to do anything. And if you didn't get there in that window of time, you didn't get it. Well, Shane had a lot of responsibilities as mayor down here to get things set up, so we decided we'll get the Dubuque things done and then just go straight to Burlington. And thankfully we did, because I don't think we'd have made it otherwise. We were cutting it close as it was. But what an experience. Then we went to Ottumwa. I met a radar look-alike. Everybody on my Facebook thought that was actually radar, but it was not Gary Burghoff. It was someone that looked a lot like him. We met the mayor there also. We got to do a
That was
demolition
awesome.
derby. I did not use the Ford Explorer for that. They gave us some cars, and I literally destroyed that car.
Chad, you were all about it. I'd love to see that on video.
Sac City, we got to see, this was just in the news, the Tuskegee, no, I'm sorry, that was in
Ottumwa.
Ottumwa, the Tuskegee
Airman.
Airmen. When we were in Sac City, they had some extraordinary artifacts from, these
Riders.
were from the Spanish-American War, Roosevelt's Rough Riders. And people in Sac City donated these things because their family members participated in that. It's just really interesting, the history in Iowa. While we were there, we also got to meet Cookie, the guy who owns Cookie's sauces. They were making us lunch that day. We got to we got to touch the world's largest popcorn ball, and Shane got to actually participate in making a portion of that. That popcorn ball weighed over 9,000 pounds, 12 feet in diameter. And a fun fact, this lady right here is the one that came up with the idea. She was in the position that Chelsea is in now and decided that they needed a tourist attraction in Sac City. I don't know when this was. This was 15 years ago now. They came up with a 2,300-pound popcorn ball. Someone bettered them. They did that 2 or 3 times, and finally she just says, let's make a 10,000-pound one. And then they did, and now they've had it for quite a long time. But she told me, I asked her, how long does it last? You know, does it get stale? Does it get nasty? And she goes, well, the first one we blew up was 7 sticks of dynamite, and it was still gooey on the inside. And it was 7 years old. So it holds up, I guess. In Vermilion, I would say that this is probably the highlight of the trip for you, wasn't it, Shane? I mean,
It was
this was
awesome.
pretty significant. Anyone who goes to church could maybe understand the significance of this. That is a 400-year-old Bible that Shane is holding there. And Shane, maybe you could even speak to that. I just think it's worth noting. It was such a significant
It
artifact.
was, they had to sneak it out of Europe. It was during the Dark Ages, where it was tough times. And obviously, you can see how big that Bible is. For somebody to snake that out of a country, you know how committed they had to be to it, and you know what was facing them if they would have got caught with that. So it was just, it was in great shape. It was just phenomenal that, you know, that was the hand of God. You know, there was just no way that something like that could have happened, that it would end up in the United States. But I'll stop.
The thing I remember about it was that
It was.
it was in Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia. There you go.
And the thing I remember about the pages, 400 years old, you wouldn't think it would have pages that you could turn, but they were almost like leather, weren't they, Shane? They were just.
It was amazing.
Really
It was
amazing. Yankton, South Dakota, this was a strange day. So we marked the grave of John Jack McCall, and if you don't know who he was the guy who's famous for killing Wild Bill Hitchcock
Shut him back.
by shooting him in the back at a card game. Well, he had gone with an unmarked grave because he was such an, had to do with the nuns who owned the cemetery and the way that the law read back then, because of the way he was convicted in that. But he was hung there in Yankton, and then they finally marked his grave. And this was interesting. So this was the mayor of Yankton. He's also a full-time, he's part-time mayor, full-time crop duster. And he took all the fireballers for a ride, and I think he took Shane on a special ride because Shane had been ribbing him the whole time. And this might be evidence of what the ride was like. Shane was kissing the ground when he got back. You want to describe that ride real quick?
I think that says it all, my friend.
It was a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Shane's riding in the plane, they got me looking all over town for these cows. And this was when we realized that the more stuff they put into the clues, usually the more bogus the possibility is, because there were 6 or 7 cows that they said were in this town. There was one cow that used to be in town and it's not there any longer, but they used that to get everybody going. And it was just,
Got everybody going too.
it was crazy. We were running all over town trying to find those silly cows. They were all fake. Shane got schooled by these girls at the Sanford Coyote Sports Center, the University of South Dakota, on how to play basketball. Found out he's lost a few skills over the years.
Just a little bit, boss.
Then we were in Gregory, South Dakota, and I'm telling you what, for a town of 1,200 people, these guys made it look like they were a town of 10,000 people. I mean, the spirit there and the community pride was just enormous, and we had a lot of fun there. And we also learned a little bit about Oscar Michaud, who was an African-American filmmaker and had some significance there in town. Passions Control, some of the people that we met. And we met, this brought back old memories of the drive-in theater here in town, and
We want one back.
Shane said that we needed one here in town. I would agree. There's just that nostalgia that goes along with a drive-in movie theater. I'm old enough to remember it, and this gentleman right here had been preserving and maintaining that theater. He just bought this piece of equipment which enabled him to play the digital media that comes out from theaters now. And we made a nice little donation to him. We got to touch the projector and then just participate and meet that fellow. He was so passionate about that. You could smell the popcorn as soon as you walked into the concession stand area. We met Casey Tibbs' descendants, and Casey Tibbs was a famous rodeo guy, and he got to hold his buckle, hold his boots, and he made this. It was a museum, but he called it the Casey Tibbs South Dakota Rodeo Center. It looked a lot more like a museum to me, but he's very particular about those things. And we learned that this is not pronounced Pierre, South Dakota. It's pronounced Pier, South Dakota. And we got to meet these guys here who ran the National Guard Museum there, and they had some pretty significant artifacts for us. This was one of the sillier things that we found. It looks like the Eiffel Tower, but it was actually just a radio tower, and we had to take a picture of it. The tricky part was taking a picture of us and the entire tower. If you look really close, see those toes right there? That's Shane laying on his back trying to get the picture.
And yes, those toes are real.
We had to take pictures of things like riding a dinosaur that was at the Sinclair station there also. We got to watch these dogs in Pierre, South Dakota. South Dakota is a great place they're really well known for their pheasant hunting and right now is like prime time for that in that area. We got to see these dogs go out and root out some birds that were in the grass. They were really good at their job. This was probably the most significant war memorial I had ever seen. It was called the Flaming Fountain Memorial in Pierre, and it's just really, really significant. It's worth the trip to Pierre by itself. It really was. Rapid City was the last day, and we had quite the color guard. We had an extraordinary turnout. I was impressed by these flowers that were growing there. I've tried to grow them at my place, and they do not look like that. There was a lot of prep work. This was the state capitol in the background. And what else did we do in South Dakota? Oh, Shane had to find all of these. We had to take pictures of the dinosaurs at Dino Park, and Shane had to pose like the dinosaur that he was with here. So you see him, Tyrannosaurus Rex. We learned a joke about him. Nick might know that joke. That's how you get Nick to pay attention. Just bring his name up.
That's right.
South Dakota. Shane also got to build a weapon here, or not a weapon, but a firearm. It was a participant in, he had to make the stock for H&S Precision up there. And we got to meet the presidents. Anybody? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. And the kids all got that right first try.
Yeah, they did.
We met the ass from Rapid City, and this was us getting ready to go on the parade. They had a very significant parade there in Rapid City. It was quite the send-off for us. And we just, thank yous are, it's easy to say, but it's really sincere when we mean it. I mean, we couldn't have pulled it off without everyone's help from the city, the community. Chelsea's going to come up and do her bit. Can't thank everyone enough for allowing me to participate as well.
How many miles did you put on that car?
3,400 miles by the time we were done. The investment of time, when Chelsea called and says, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I know anyone who's traveled with Shane will appreciate this, but the running joke, and it started day one, and you're going to love this, was, where's Shane? The entire time, that was all that I was doing, was saying, where's Shane? People would come up to me, where's Shane? I'm like, I don't know. But every time we would find him, you know what he was doing? He was meeting everyone else in the area, introducing himself, giving them a Visit Burlington armband, telling them all about our community. I mean, every time I was looking for him, that's what he was doing. We couldn't get out of those museums, out of those buildings, without meeting everyone in the room. We had to meet everyone in the building, everyone on the way to the building. We had to meet them. So I just got to where I was like, it doesn't matter how long it takes. This is what he's going to do. I can't change this guy. But I've never met a person so passionate about what he does, and I really appreciated that in Shane, and got to really know him over the week's time. To spend more than 100 hours in the car with a guy, you get to know him a little bit. And Shane, I got to know Shane quite well, and to know his passion for the city, and I think the city's lucky to have him. So, other than that, I'd answer any questions you guys might have about it.
I don't have any questions, but, it's going to sound lame now after you just gave me a compliment, but I've already told you this, CEO, beforehand. What a privilege it was, and it was a tough trip for me, I've got a few ailments and issues, and I knew it was going to be a tough trip. You did most of the driving and the heavy lifting. Whenever we got to something that was going to be strenuous, if I questioned it whatsoever, Chad jumped on it right away. Man, you were a great amigo to travel with, and what a blessing it was to have you. And I just want to say I appreciate you and Schottenkirks for giving us that vehicle, the hot and the cold and the massager all the way down. So.
We were spoiled a little bit, that's for sure. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nothing else?
Chad.
Thank you, my friend. Okay. The next presentation we have is Convention and Tourism Bureau, Chelsea LaRue. That's not how you say my last name, but I just love saying it like that. Good presentation, CEO.
Yes, my new name is Chelsea LaRue, so not a new person in the position, Executive Director of the Greater Burlington Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I'm here tonight to do my biannual, twice-a-year update to the council on what the CVB's been up to. And obviously, I won't spend the whole night on Fireball Run, but that was a big event for us this year. So just kind of obviously, in case you don't remember, we are the cover of the state travel guide this year. Snake Alley was selected by popular vote last year, just about a year ago. So we've been accepting that honor, being spread all across the nation and different countries, be highlighted on the state guide. And they did just give that up to the Manchester Whitewater Park, so we'll have to give up that honor here in just about another month. We did complete a remodel at the Port of Burlington Welcome Center. That was about an $80,000 project that we did. Top two photos are before pictures and bottom is after. So we had a drastic change at the Welcome Center, very modern feel update. It's been wonderful to have that renovation, and I can't thank the city enough for the support moving forward with that as well. If you haven't been down to see it yet, I highly encourage you to come see the Welcome Center. We are up to about 11,000 visitors this year, and I think pretty close to hitting all 50 states again of visitors through the door. In May, we did sign the destination fee contracts with 7 of our local hotel properties. So these properties are voluntarily adding a 1.65% per room per night to guest hotel bills. And these dollars are being put in a separate account within the CVB to help support the operations of the soon-to-come indoor sports complexes and the marketing efforts of those complexes. We have already spent a little bit of those dollars. We sent a representative to attend our first sports trade show and learned lots about the youth sports market and kind of how to recruit some of those tournaments. We're learning that recruiting those tournaments is expensive, and so for us to be successful in it, it was a very good move to start this fund and start collecting those dollars now to try to get ahead of the game a little bit. Not all 7 are up and running quite yet, just because every property answers to a different brand, and every brand runs their system a little bit differently, so we're still working through some of those kinks, and then we'll go back and reapproach the rest of the properties in town to get them on board as well. Of course, Fireball Run, it was a huge day in Greater Burlington almost 2 months ago now. I just picked a few of my favorite pictures throughout the day that kind of accumulated everything. Jim, to answer your question, there were a number of missions within town. Weingard was a mission location. They got to do 4 steps of the process throughout the plant, packaging, and production of a satellite dish. They got to go to Trailways, and half the teams got to get in the bus simulator and drive the bus like they were learning how to be a bus driver, and the other half had to complete a maintenance chore of some sort, either changing the oil, changing a tire, or changing the brakes on the bus. And I heard Queen of Versailles got sent to go change oil, I think, so that'll be interesting. They were at Fun City. They did arcade, go-karts, and the water park while there. Kenny's Roller Ranch, they had to make so many baskets on bank shot. If they missed, then they had to go into the rink and make up their time with the roller derby girls. So that was fun for them. They were at the Welcome Center, and they got to crack open a small geode and see the 750-pound geode that we have down there. Of course, Snake Alley, you can see some of the cars driving down Snake Alley. That one, we ended up not being able to time them, but they still got to have fun with coming down the alley. They did 3 different missions at the Heritage Center. I know the one that I thought was fun, they had to sing parts of Flying to the Moon in front of Jeff Rucker, and he scored them that way. And then they did 2 missions at the Phelps House. One of them, they have a letter from Florence Nightingale up there, so they got to touch and hold that letter as well.
Cool.
Fireball Run truly was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our community. The video will be in production for about a year now. So next September, we're brainstorming how do we continue to market that and tout ourselves as a Fireball Run community. How do we throw a big party and kind of get everybody's excitement back up in the release? Of course, Shane and Chad will be included in on those fun things. And it couldn't have been done without the full community support. So we thank everybody that came out and supported the day of the event. We thank you as council for just being supportive and helping spread the positive message of Fireball Run. Chad kind of touched on it briefly. You know, every team was assigned a missing child. Team Burlington was assigned Erin Pospisil from Cedar Rapids. She went missing in 2001. It was an honor for us to be able to host her grandfather here for the morning send-off, and Chad and Shane got to meet him. He's still very actively searching for Erin, and I told him we're not stopping. So anytime you can help share Erin's message, just try to bring her back home to her family is great. And it's a rumor true that they found 2 leads. So 2 more kids might be coming home soon because of Fireball Run. So it's a great thing. The other great thing is Community Action Head Start was selected to be our local community charity. So all of the teams donated to Head Start and helped with their programming as well. So it's not all fun. There's some really good things behind it as well. And of course, Ripley's Believe It or Not. And honestly, Ripley's Believe It or Not would not have happened without our relationship with Fireball Run. So we truly have to thank Jay and the executive producers for helping forge that relationship. Ripley's is getting ready to celebrate their 100th anniversary, so that's how they created this program. They're picking 100 spots all across America, and they'll start doing their big marketing campaign next year, and Snake Alley Forever will be stop number 1. You know, when somebody starts doing the list, they might skip 34, 38 in the middle, but they'll never skip number 1. So, and like Chad said, this is never going away. We have this now for a lifetime here in our community, and it's an honor. And the Ripley's team was amazing to work with, so we're looking forward to continuing that relationship with them and building upon the what they've brought to our community. So some of the boring numbers and stuff now, but you are the first to hear the new economic impact numbers from the state of Iowa. I got these at 1:30 this afternoon, so fresh off the press. Remember, these numbers are a year behind, so it is 2016 numbers that we're looking at here, but we had visitor expenditures of over $136 million throughout 2016. Tourism in Des Moines County supported over 1,090 jobs, brought in $7.12 million in state taxes, and over $2.0 million in local taxes. So we continue to push those numbers high. We continue to be ranked 13th out of the 99 counties in the state of Iowa, and hopefully we can see those continue to grow. The state did have a little over $8.2 billion total visitor expenditures in 2016. The CVB had a direct hand in helping support over 46,000 visitors to the community. Those are, whether the event received grant dollars from us, we supported them in helping write the bid proposal to have the event here, welcome bags, things of those natures. These visitors stay an average of about 1.4 days and brought in just shy of 5,000 hotel rooms with over a $6.3 million estimated economic impact. We have mailed out just shy of 4,000 community guides this year, and that hits all 50 states plus Washington, D.C., and 25 different countries. And these guides are mailed by visitors' direct requests. So they've either gone to our website and asked for more information about us, or they've seen one of our ads somewhere and asked for more information. So hopefully they've made the jump and booked their trip to come here as well. Like I mentioned, we've had about 11,000 visitors at the Welcome Center. This is the data through April, and our digital community guide has seen over 21,000 page views, with the top cities viewing us being Davenport, Cedar Rapids, a city in Texas, and Crystal Lake, Illinois. So it's just always interesting to see where people are checking us out from. So Jim's probably mentioned to you guys a few times, but unfortunately hotel occupancy has dropped quite a bit this year. This chart does show data through September. The turquoise line on the far right with every month is 2017 numbers, and year to year we have dropped about 18 to 20%. So we are seeing that softening from Iowa Fertilizer and all of the other construction projects we've had in the community the last few years. We knew it was coming, we just didn't know to what extent, but it's here. And same with revenue per room, that's down as well. And the revenue per room is coming in about $59 per room for year-to-date total, same with about an 18% decrease. So with that information, looking ahead, the CVB has been seeing these numbers, the hotel industry has been seeing these numbers, and we don't like them. It's a little disheartening after all the good that we just had in the year. So 2018 is going to be a strategic year for the CVB. We're looking at this data. We know the youth sports market is very successful for our community, and how can the CVB help continue to bolster that? We have the 2 indoor complexes coming on board. So how can the CVB be supportive of those and getting teams here right from the beginning and encouraging them to stay a little bit of time while they're in the community? We're considering possibly hiring a market study, market analysis to be done next year. We know there's all these other complexes around us, so what can we do to market ourselves above these other complexes and kind of learn what our market saturation rate is? With the occupancy drop, the hotel industry has asked us to look into a housing bureau, so to make a centralized location for these teams to book their rooms, to make it easy on them. So we are currently researching that, Cedar Rapids has it in-house, so utilizing my resources in the industry and talking to them. Plus, there's third-party companies all over the nation that do that as well, and kind of weighing the pros and cons and moving forward. It is interesting that the hotel industry has asked us to look into that, though, too, because typically those programs do offer a kickback either to the CVB or the event or the complex that's hosting the event. So things like that. We are also considering more aggressive marketing, maybe a direct sales with attending more trade shows and actively recruiting these events and teams to the area and working with the event organizers. What can the CVB do? We're not event promoters, so we don't know everything that goes into promoting the event. So learning from these event organizers to see how we can be more help to them and try to increase those occupancy numbers a little bit more. So that's kind of what I got. What questions do you have for me? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea. Next, we have Road Extension and Flint Ridge Business Park, Jason Hutchison. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeremy.
Good evening, my name is Jason Hutchison. Actually, it's not, my name is Jeremy Hess. I'm with the Greater Burlington Partnership
You
and
look
newest.
better, Jason, than I.
Appreciate that. I know he does. I am with the Greater Burlington Partnership. I am the newest Director of Economic Development, so it's a privilege to be here with the council tonight for the first time. I'm just going to be sharing some information with you that we would hope that you would consider and take under consideration. Flint Ridge Business Park has been a very successful partnership between Burlington, West Burlington, and the Economic Development Division of Greater Burlington Partnership. And so I'm here tonight to ask the council to consider moving forward with including a long platted and a long planned road in its capital improvement plan that you will soon be undertaking. So the picture that you're looking at here that's a little bit difficult to see, why don't we go back to the one that's, let's go right. So you can see where the ball field is, the bottom right corner. That is exactly, that's the proposed road, somewhat superimposed over the land. Essentially, this road has been planned and platted. It's on, I'm going to lose my words here. It is on the preliminary plat. There we go. There it is. And you show where it dead ends, just right down there by the ball fields. And so if you've been out to the ball fields during a busy tournament or whatever, you know that it's already very, very difficult to get in, get out. But as we move forward, these lots that you see here, 13, 14, 19, 18, that's just about it that we have in the business park itself, that we have left to market and to develop. We have 23 and 24's already taken there, you see, with Duraplastics. But we're down to the last bit of the land. This is a road that's been planned and platted and thought about, and this is something we just would ask the council as they move forward into their capital improvement program to consider moving forward with just committing to seeing that road be placed in there in the future. So we don't have anything right now. It's not something that has to be done. We're not asking to break ground. We're just asking to make sure that you all consider fulfilling the master plan for the site that has been around for a long, long time. We do have some cost estimates that Nick has shared with us, and it's available to you. Again, these are things that you need to consider are you have options as far as the various forms of payment or how to pay for these roads, et cetera. You have RISE grants and so forth. And so those things are available. That's really all I have is for the council to consider, again, moving forward with committing to seeing this through as it's been on the preliminary plat for years and just consider it in your capital improvement plan. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
So something that the council can do, or the city can do, we can go after a RISE opportunity grant.
Rise Opportunity Grant, right.
Is that
There's
the
Rise.
speculative?
There's a speculative, 60%.
What we would most likely do is on the speculative on this, 50%. And for them, from an economic development perspective, what it does is it does allow the lots, the two southern of those 4 lots, to be more marketable and usable. Actually, even the northwest corner lot, due to the traffic flow in that area, makes it more marketable for development. And it, at the same time, enhances the flow of our traffic for the recplex itself. What cost estimate do you have on that, Nick? So you've got $750,000 of potential cost in here. Do you have engineering in that? So,
And I would say, 736,000 plus the 87,000 for some of the aesthetic type things. And actually, if you throw that map back up there, I didn't get a chance to tell Jesse this before we worked up this estimate. I wouldn't see the road curve like that. I would see it square off from a parcel development standpoint for one, and then future road extension to the south if needed.
Yeah.
So that would be a higher cost just because it's longer length. That would be a quantity adjustment, but 750,000 should get that done, and then you have the extra amount for that. Plus, engineering costs would have to be into that too, and that's at 14%.
so on a project where if you're in 800, 850, 900, I guess 900,000 with engineering, if you do all the alternates, 50% funding through the RISE program. Now, that's something that if the city did move forward and put it on our CIP plan and wanted to do it, speaking with Jason, I didn't really necessarily speak as much with Jeremy about this, but my understanding would be that we could be selective about when we chose to submit a project, looking at what's going on at statewide level for when looks like the time frame that would be the most advantageous to have it considered. In regards to how would we pay for a match on this, this is a project based off of location and what it allows it to have done for economic development purposes. I'd look at TIF. In fact, as I'd talked with Nick about different projects that we could look at for TIF over the next few years, this was one that I told him that was feasible to look at. Another one was potentially, a consideration of a roundabout at the intersection of Division and West Burlington, and even potentially right at the entrance to the rec center itself as being another location where it may make sense, just the way traffic backs up at both of those intersections. And a third project that I told him that to look at would be potential, seeing what a cost estimate would be to do really synchronized traffic light system along Highway 61 through town. We have the flexibility to consider those over the next 5 years. You don't have to do them, but they're all things that are flexible and we have the potential to do. And I think they're all good usage of TIF funds for development of the community. Did you have anything on it, Nick? It's not something that you have to have this isn't something that we need a decision on, but to me, it makes sense that if you're okay with it, we'd really like to move, from a staff perspective, it makes sense to move forward as this is one of our CIP projects to develop and put out there for consideration this year.
I don't have any. We good?
Yep.
We good?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
Thank you.
All right, glad to.
If you
Jeremy.
tell us you want to mix any consideration of this, please do. Otherwise, it's something that we'll at least put together and have as part of something that you can look at this cycle.
Yeah, that's good with me, man. Everybody's good?
So
Nick?
I'm getting that makes sense to consider that
Yeah,
as a CIP item.
yeah.
I just wanted clarification.
All right.
All right.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay. We have our annual report from our favorite librarian.
All right, well, thank you. Tonight I'm here to give the annual report for the library. Come here each year to give you some of the highlights. As you can see, we go by a fiscal year for our annual report. So in the print report, I gave you all those numbers, and that information is all for fiscal year 17. I will, in my presentation, give some updates as we're several months into fiscal year 18 now. I'll mention a few things that have happened since the end of that fiscal year. We do monthly reports. I email those out to you, so if you're getting those. We also have a monthly newsletter that we send over. Those are good ways to keep up with what's going on at the library, in addition to this annual report. Those monthly reports are available on our website, so anyone in the community who is interested in seeing those can do that. The newsletters are available on our website, or you can pick them up at the library, or they get mailed out if you join the Friends of the Library group. So there are several different ways to keep up with what's happening at the library. Obviously, I think the best way to get an idea of what's happening at the library is to come to the library, so I encourage that, see what's going on. And anyone in the community, I love giving tours of the library, so they can always contact me, give a tour. I'm always happy to come up and talk to people about what's going on. Before I go into all the highlights from fiscal year 17, I just want to acknowledge our Library Board of Trustees. So these are the board members from fiscal year 17. Two of these board members, Jennifer Cleaver Kirkman and Martin Celino Hug, ended their terms at the end of that fiscal year. So we now also have Matt Shin and Mary Winan on our board, so have them serve with us. We have three members here tonight, so I just want to make sure to point out. Jerry Parks, you all know, he was up here already, but he's our board president. And then we also have Sarah Goff and Becky Godfrey here, so I appreciate their service. And for those that don't know, the Library Board of Trustees is appointed by the council, and they are a governing board. And so they're responsible for overseeing my position, the library director position, setting policy, approving expenditures, a lot of things that are very important to the direction of the library. So really appreciate what they do.
You've got a good board.
I do.
Just saying.
We do. So one of our highlights last fiscal year was the 10th birthday of 210 Court Street. So we held a birthday party and celebrated, and whenever you want to celebrate something, bring in Tom Pease. He's full of energy. And so he was a great leader there that day, led us on songs. And we had people write up some of their little birthday notices about things they liked about the library. So that was a really fun thing to celebrate. And really celebrate the space, but also to celebrate all the people in our community that made that possible. Each year we do a summer reading program, and we had over 1,400 summer readers in this last summer, and so it's very successful. Those kids all get to continue learning through the summer. Events, you can see we had, I wasn't really happy about the fire in the library event. I don't know what she was doing there, but they do different experiments. They bring in animals from Blank Park Zoo. Lots of fun things for kids to come and do. Plus, they keep reading during the summer and keeping up their skills so that when they go back to school, they're ready to keep learning, which is really what our main goal is with summer reading. We also try to hold a lot of special events throughout the year for families and community members to come together and participate in. So we had the, coming up again here soon, we have the holiday sing-along, and we had a special visitor come for that. Pumpkin Palooza, we held the first Pumpkin Palooza in fiscal year 17. We just had the second one at the end of October. We had over 300 people come to that, painting pumpkins, doing story times, decorating cookies. It was just a fun event for families to get to come together and celebrate fall. In fiscal year 17, we had our first clothing swap. This was something modeled after some of the libraries that have done this. So people were able to bring in clothes they didn't need anymore. And then we had a day we opened it up and people could come and take things. They traded, bring things in, take some back with you. Sweet. And anything that was left that no one took, we took to Goodwill. So continued to go on to others that could use that. And last fiscal we had Harry Potter Yule Ball, which we had people of all ages who enjoyed coming to that. Some of our other events are like our annual Comic-Con that we do, the Sterling Lord Writers and Readers Festival. So there's several things we do throughout the year. There's sort of family-friendly community events. We also have been making a real point to go out into the community. And so some of the things that we've done is going to the farmers market. This last year we were there in May and September all month for that. We also go to the STEM Festival at SCC, participated in City Day in the Park back in fiscal year 17. One that isn't really as visible, but I think is a really important program that's been going on for a dozen years now, is our outreach to preschools. So there certainly are kids in our community who can't make it to the story times that we have at the library. And so we make a point of getting out to them. And it's grown thanks to sponsorship from the Murray Foundation. So we visit 32 preschools every month, 32 preschool classes every month, and reach over 500 children. And so all throughout the school year, we go to do that. And then at the end of the school year in May, all those kids get a book to take home with them. So again, thank you to the Murray Foundation for making that possible. One of our other things that we do in terms of outreach is the bookmobile. And so it's getting loaded up here.
The bookmobile is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it was actually in Mount Pleasant last week, I think, for an orchestra event, and it was out there because the school district uses this vehicle throughout the year, but they've left this wrap on it so that in the summer we get to use it. Now, this was the first year, so third year for the bookmobile, but the first year that we didn't have the school district volunteer driving the vehicle and taking care of all of that. In the past, we provided the books, they've taken the vehicle out. This year, we had library staff do that, and I want to thank Public Works for giving us a place to park the vehicle. We went out once a week in 3 different stops, and then we also went out to Middletown this year as well. So I'm going to try to continue to expand that to some of the other communities that we serve. In terms of community partnerships and community events that we participate in, I did put into the little packet that I gave you there a handout about the Community Thanksgiving Dinner. That's one that's coming up. The library has been involved with that since the beginning. Lois Blythe, one of our staff members, continues to be on that committee. And if you're interested in volunteering, you call the library about that. There was a great article in the paper this weekend about their needs, and I know they said that they needed some people to wash dishes, and I just took a call this afternoon from someone who's volunteering to wash dishes. So there's lots of different ways in which people can volunteer to serve that day. We also are this place where you can bring food donations, the canned foods for green beans and corn, apple juice, and then also cranberry sauce. So those are things that we participate in. The sheet that I gave you, though, does outline the other things that they're looking for, like you can make fruit pies and jello salads, and you can donate turkeys. So there's several different things that you can do. This has been a wonderful event in the community. It's a great opportunity for people to have a place to go on Thanksgiving and come together. And they do a wonderful job with this.
And they're doing the turkeys the same way, that's correct?
The turkeys, you go to Hy-Vee and say that you want to donate a turkey, and Hy-Vee takes care of it for you. Hy-Vee on agency. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're happy to be able to be a support in that program. Other partnerships that we have, partnering with the schools. We go every month to the middle schools to talk about books in the classes. We have a staff member, Becky, who will spend a day there going to the different classes. She also and some other staff members go to the after-school program and do projects with them. A couple of us are on the after-school advisory board. We jointly sponsor things with the school. And this last year, we participated in health fairs, literacy nights. So we're always looking for ways in which we can be involved and supportive of what they're doing. And they have brought the after-school program to visit us already this year. Oops, too fast. There we go. So again, these are fiscal year 17 numbers. We had over 850 classes for kids. Now, this includes outreach as well. So this includes the times that Becky goes to the schools and all of those other things that we do. And see over 25,000 participants in those. just gives you an idea of how we really strive to provide something for children and families from birth through the teen years. So we start right at the beginning. When a child is born at Great River Medical Center, they receive a book as part of the Babies Need Books project. And we partner with a few different organizations to make that possible. Rotary Club pays for the books. We have ADK come and wrap the books. So a lot of people get involved in that. And then kids are encouraged, they get literature, the parents do, to bring their babies to Baby Garden, and that's for birth through 24 months. We tried to go down to just 2 sessions this last time, and we're going back to 3 again, because we see so much demand for it. So we do 3 sessions a week of Baby Garden. And then the families move on to Wiggle Time, then graduate on to Story Time, and then the 3-2-1 Blast, which is for grades 1 through 3. And then the kids can move right into our tween classes. Those are twice a month, and that's for those upper elementary, early middle school grades. And then you can go on and participate in the teen activities. And I'm always really excited about the things that are going on with the teens. Now, this 133 events, that's part of that 852 that I showed you before. That was the overall youth. I just broke out teen here so you could see how many different things we're doing with the teens in the community.
Didn't they get the teams get that Pepsi machine there?
This last year, they said to us, we really want there to be something at the library because our coffee shop at that time closed at 2 o'clock. So by the time they got out of school or they came on the weekends, there wasn't anything. No, they couldn't get something to drink. So they suggested a vending machine. And so Becky looked into that because she works with this group, and they get a small commission. We get a little check every now and then that goes towards teen programs. So because it was their idea, we thought it was appropriate that that money go back towards their snacks and other things, that supplies for their programs. The other thing that they do to raise funds for teen programs, you see the young man with the flag up there, they go out and put up flags, take down flags all holidays with the Optimist Club as part of their project. So just on Saturday, they did their last flag route of the year. They do 94 flags they put up in the early morning, and 94 they take down at the end of the day. And it raises close to $1,000 a year for the teen programs. So the kids really take it on themselves to do that. Our teen group is called TCOS, and it is affiliated with the Optimist Club. It's Teens Inspiring Change, Optimism, and Service. So service is part of what they set out to do, besides getting together and having fun. One of the other things this group helped us with this year is the teen area. We had some funds from the Alliant Foundation grant to kind of revitalize that area. And we also got a Iowa Beautiful grant. And so it's our painting, and they helped us pick out some new furniture and some other things there to kind of pep that space up. So we went from an upholstered seating area to a metal seating area, which is a whole lot easier to clean, and I think it's gonna last us a little longer than the 10 years the other one did. But so they were really helpful though in giving ideas of what they'd like to see in that space, and that is part of what that group is about, is to give us ideas of what they want from us. Oh, they also just recently did Trick or Treat for UNICEF, so they're always doing different kinds of service projects. One of the other changes that are highlights of the year was that we had 2 people retire in the last fiscal year, both of them have been for over 30 years. So it's a little nerve-wracking when you lose that much experience in terms of so how is this going to work? And so, as you know, Debbie Wagenbach, who had been our Storytime person for years and years, and everyone loved coming to her programs, retired. Well, I think one of the highlights is that we brought on Allison, and Allison has taken on Wiggle Time, so she does that program, but she's also brought in some great new ideas, some new story time things we offer. So we have a sensory story time we offered for the first time last fiscal year, and then she just had one again this Saturday. We opened up a little early, so families with children with any kind of sensory issues could come in early and quiet. Has special story time for them.
Sweet.
She also did a stuffed animal sleepover story time, so only the stuffed animals slept over at the library. But the kids got to bring their stuffed animals, and then she took pictures of them doing things like looking out the window and getting in trouble with the copier, all sorts of different stuff like that. And they came together the next day and had a story time snack and got their animals back. She also came up with the idea of building a tree fort. We have kind of a stylized tree next to our story time house, and the tree fort has been very popular. Kids love to go up there and hang out and read. This was just too cute when the mom was right there with her little girls. I had to ask if I could take her picture. So we get, kids who are reading and sitting, and sometimes kids who are up and down a good time. But so those are some things that she's brought to us. We also, was a good chance to reorganize a little bit. So Debbie was a superstar with story times, and she did Wiggle Time, and she did story time. She did 3-2-1 Blast. She did a lot of weekly programs. And so we broke that up and gave some other staff members a chance to experience doing those weekly classes. So, oh, and we started a fortnight. So after hours programs, this is another one of Allison's that she did in the last year. So families got together after hours and built forts to read in throughout the library if they wanted to. This quote here is from one of the things that people wrote when we had our 10th anniversary, that the kids' events are really a big part of doing a draw to the library. Some other after-hours family events that, besides the stuffed animal sleepover, but the Family Night Unplugged, we had in September mini golf in the library after hours with a story time and all of that. And the one that's coming up on December 1st is Birthday Bash. And kids are going to get together, they'll do crafts and they'll do story time. But they're encouraging people to bring items for birthday parties, like the pans and the cake mix and candles and all of that, and those will be given to food pantries. So for families that might have trouble affording to give their child a birthday, they are going to have those things available and donate those. So, and we actually already have a woman who doesn't live in Tempe, but who saw on Facebook and is sending us some things. So, so it's nice to mix service in with what the kids are doing, even at such a young age. And so talking about the little kids, and I'm going to talk about more senior community. One of the other things, we had another staff member who retired, and as with that retirement, we moved someone into her position who started with us, the person that moved to that position, and we hired a new person to take over doing our home delivery or home library service. And so we're really pleased to have Bethany Lutenegger with us now. She has done a lot with the program in the short time she's been here. There's a little brochure that you have there in the packet that she's put together to spread the word about this for people who can't get to the library. The Altrusa Club helps us out and delivers books to them. And Bethany interviews each of them and finds out what they like to read and puts together things for them. And you can see some of the nice comments that we've had about it. Most recently, we just received a couple weeks ago, is the daughter of the woman who's at the Klein Center who gets home delivery. We hear that over and over from people who are in that program, that it's just very rewarding for those that get to participate. So we're happy to offer that. So a few other highlights. The board took on starting a new strategic plan process. We're almost to the end of that process now. So next time I come and talk to you, I'm sure I'll be talking about that. One of the things that's in the strategic plan is to look at ways to remove barriers to access. And by that I mean just sometimes there are things that keep people from using the library. So that's part of why we do the bookmobile. If transportation is an issue, we're going to go to them. Our Greyhound card started last fiscal year. We're doing more of it this fall. We're trying to test this out with kids primarily in the after-school program. One of the barriers for young people to getting a library card is they have to have their parent's signature. So that means their parent has to come with them and be able to do that. And some of this just doesn't work for some families. So we're offering a card that they can get through the school. We go in and they sign up. They don't have a parent's signature, but they can use all of the online tools that we have. And we have quite a few things they can use. So especially now that the kids in the Burlington School District have those Chromebooks, they can get on and use those things. So we're just testing that out and doing that program. Another thing is the payment plan. We added that into our policy in the last year. So for people with fixed income, or you have other income restrictions, if they get over a certain amount of fees on their library card, you can't check out anymore. That's the way it's always been. And so what we do is we allow them to go on a system where if they pay 10% each time they check out, they can continue to check out. So it keeps them coming back and using the library and giving them a way to cover those funds. Because too often I hear people come up to pay a fine and they say, well, I have to buy food or electric bill or, different things like that. And we don't want to be taking money from that. So we want to make it easier for people to be able to continue to use the library. So that's one of the new things that we've done. We have a loan service through a courier, so to help support that program we've had for a long time. So anything that you can't find at our library, we can get from other libraries for you. We've added a monthly class for homeschool students. We added an AED unit, so we all learned how to use that too. And thanks to funds from Great River Health Systems. We also replaced all the public computers. They were the same computers we had when we opened the buildings. They were over 10 years old, and we've got a new system to manage those too. So
All the computers are replaced?
the public computers. So that seems to be going much better. We have a lot less downtime.
What
on those.
happens with what do you do with the old?
Well, in this case, the computers were on a thin client system, so they've all been off the servers, not like a desktop PC or anything like that. So
They're pretty much not
they aren't
worth-
something that you can pass on to someone else, to use very easily. Yeah, and they are pretty old, so, yeah. And then just briefly, we, of course, in terms of numbers on how many adult classes and programs we have, our meeting room uses, that is our small rooms, the little study rooms. We're seeing those filling up every day. It's just amazing how much those are getting used. We also have quite a few volunteers. Some of these are the kids from Great River Christian Schools. You see here in the picture, they come every now and then as a group and do some time at the library, help out. We also have teens who volunteer in the summer. And then we have a teen internship program. So we have a summer internship. We have a teen intern right now, too, in the fall. It's the first year we've done a fall internship.
When's our next book sale?
Well, as a matter of fact, kind of hard to see on the edge down over there, but we were doing a Black Friday book sale. So it will be the 24th. I think that's right. So Black Friday, you can come 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock and buy books there. So a lot of these volunteers are Friends of the Library members who work on the book sales or work at Footnotes. So they do all of that. And then I always like to include, see these numbers in the report. To break down some of the use numbers into a daily figure, I think it's easier to kind of get a feel for what we're doing. So over 1,500 items are checked out or downloaded through the library every day. We were open 307 days last year, and so on average.
1,500 per day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can see kind of a breakdown of how the items are. I also threw in a little thing here. Our Sterling Lord Writers and Readers Festival is this Friday. So if you'd like to come and learn more about being a writer or meet some of the local authors, we have that program coming up. Not everyone comes to the library to check things out. So our average visitor count is 694 people every day. So people come to ask reference questions, use our computers, log into our Wi-Fi, attend a class, use the meeting rooms, or open a new library account. And I say we offer on average 3 library events every day that we're open. Our total collection use last fiscal year was $496,767 for the year, which was up just by about 3,000. So pretty much steady with what it had been. And then I would end, we got an anonymous note left in the teen area, and I just really like, thank you enough for making me feel welcome and safe. And that's something that's really important to us, is making every community member feel welcome at the library. And so if you have any questions about anything that we've been doing in the last year, I'm happy to answer those.
I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you didn't tell everybody that that was me that wrote the note, but I really did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, good.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Good job, Rhonda. Good job. You guys have been wonderful tonight. It's been a long meeting, but we appreciate those of you that stuck around. We've got our Human Rights Commission annual report.
Hello, the report is actually in your packet. Candy's going to come up and go over it. She's the president, vice chair, chairman, whatever we call each other.
Candy, you've been so
and-
patient.
And
Appreciate you
Disselhorst
being
here
patient.
also.
Hi, I'm Candy Glick. I'm on the Burlington Human Rights Commission, and Stephanie was so kind to draw this together, so I'm going to be reading it together. The mission of the Human Rights Commission is to foster open dialogue and promote education regarding discrimination in the city of Burlington. The public is invited to all of our meetings. They're held at 5:15, the second Wednesday of every other month. We just changed. We used to have it on a monthly basis, but we found it was just better to do it every other month with the amount of time that we spend. Current members are Ann Disselhorst, who's right here with me, myself, Al, Charles, and Linda Robinson. The annual activities that we do participate in the Martin Luther King celebration. We attend, we sponsor room rental for celebration, so we do get city funds that help us give money back into the community. The Juneteenth celebration, we do have members attend. We give out Black History books during the event to children and adults. Hand those out. We do take part in the NAACP Freedom Fund banquet. We have members of, our commission that do attend, and we do sponsor in their program booklet. So we are listed as a sponsor. We do take part in the Optimist Club Red Ribbon Week Trivia Contest. We sponsor that event, or partial sponsors of that as well. We do take part also in the PFLAG Festival. I don't know if you're familiar, but that's the parents, family, and friends of lesbian and gays in the community. So that actually is going to be coming up, I think, shortly. Is that the film festival? Next summer? No, I guess not. The Iowa Civil Rights Commission complaints by calendar year, you should have a copy of that. These are things that we discussed in our committee meetings. In 2016, there was 15 complaints that came through for employment, 1 for public accommodation, so there was a total of 16, which was down considerably over the year before. In 2015, there was a total of 22. In 2014, there were 13, so we're still up a little bit from where we were 3 years ago, but it's come down from last year, which is a good thing. Spent a lot of time discussing the different things that go on in the community and what we can do to, help solve problems or just be there for the community. Sometimes that's all it takes, is answering a phone call and talking to someone to help them get stuff figured out. So that's what we're there to do. Yep, pretty easy.
Any questions for Candy?
A lot of people know my name from there. Yeah.
Candy wears a lot of hats.
I do. I have a lot
She's
of
not
hats.
wearing one tonight, though.
No, not today. See?
Thank you.
Yeah,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thanks for being patient. Thanks for coming down. You as well, Ann. Thank you. We're going to close on out. Mr. Tislin.
I don't know if an email was sent out, Brownfield, joint meeting with, 30th, if there hasn't been an email, but we'll send one. We're looking Thursday, November 30th, and seeing if that would work for majority of council members, and then we have some new members as well. Also wanting to discuss briefly some of the comp plan updates at that meeting as well with the planning commission. So we'll get the email on that.
That's it? Okay. Counselor, anything on the
Well,
line?
not officially yet, but I enjoyed it. Thanks.
No comments?
No comments. I think there's a lot of great things going on in Burlington, so it's a pleasure to be involved.
Okay. Counselor, do you want to say anything? There's a microphone right here.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you for everyone that came out and voted.
All right.
You caught me off guard.
All right. Well, good. That's what I do. Counselor. There you go.
No, good, thank you.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Wow, what a surprise. Bishop? Nothing? Mr. Fennell?
Yeah, council members, new council council member is going to be involved in a couple of meetings this week. We have a, actually, budget workshop that staff will be going to, and I think Matt Rinker's going to as well, on Thursday. Just really an overview of the budget process and some of the factors that'll be impacting this year's budget. Matt and Linda will be going to Leadership Academy that's sponsored through the Iowa League of Cities. Actually, so is the budget workshop. They do 4 sessions during the course of the year. I think the last session 4 is at the League's annual conference next September. But this is the first one, and it's really designed to give a backdrop to primary things you need to know. Budgeting is one of them that they're going to cover. I think they have some basic council roles and responsibilities so that you have just an initial thought process on that, and they do a little bit more advanced in the 2 sessions after that. But glad to know that we have folks who are going to be involved with that workshop. The Municipal Leadership Academy is in the evening, 4 to 8, and over in Fairfield. And so for Matt especially is going to be spending his complete day doing this, and it's good to see folks trying to get up to speed on their new roles. So, and I think, Nick, you had something.
An issue last week with striping should have been done. The contractor's groove machine broke, so you might notice there's some grooves that have been started, so they have to go in there and stripe, but we expect by the end of the week that will be complete. Hopefully I'll give you kind of a little bit of an announcement as to when that'll actually open up. But you'll still see some construction on the north side of the road. They'll trench fiber line, make Roosevelt, the frontage road, and then West Burlington Avenue all connected and coordinated. And then the sidewalk will be continuing from, I think, west to east. It's a little flatter over there, so they can knock out a little bit more. Jefferson Street, they were power washing today, should be open up this week as well. They had some bollards that they had to complete. The biggest thing I think people are seeing right now is Roosevelt is currently being worked on by the DOT.
Thank you.
Starting at Division, working southward. I had no idea that it was happening. I just saw cones out there one day. They are doing some concrete patching. I know they did the outside lanes first. I would assume that they're going to jump to the inside. I haven't had a chance to talk to the DOT today. They published their period for the outside lane, so it should involve some cleanup and some removal of some stuff, and then maybe jump into the inside and switching their traffic control. But hopefully I can get an indication on how long they're going to be doing that, but it has caused some major traffic congestion along Roosevelt, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say you are appreciated in the city of Burlington, Iowa. Also, just want to, I want to thank Mr. Kreitzer. Had a wonderful editorial. I don't know what day it was, but it's just refreshing to see some encouragement coming from your local newspaper, so I just want to encourage him. And also, I just want to let everybody know that our vacation is over. We had a nice break. So I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. But Rob Sussman is back in town now, and so we just have to deal with that. There's nothing else before we close? Nothing else? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.